All right, live from New York. That's YAWK. All right, that's how we spell it here. So that's how we say it. What's up, Rain? Good to see you. Good to see you, TJ. Everyone else, anybody else that's here. I don't know if I'm saying your name right, Rain. Let me know if it's like, I don't know, because, you know, where I come from, we can't say anything right? Because it's going to come out like coffee. Speaking of, I'm going to have a little bit of coffee. I got a little bit of coffee, which I'm going to need to reheat in a little bit. I got, for tonight, I got bacon, right? Because bacon solves problems, or the good Lord says we're not supposed to eat that. But, you know, bacon does solve problems. I got a snack bar and my last Christmas chocolate. So I've been good, right? Got that for Christmas, you know, because I'm a diabetic. So you're not supposed to have this, but, you know, you gotta live, guys. You gotta live a little bit. That which does not kill you probably is killing you anyway. So a couple of cool things I want to remind anybody out there, and I'm going to do it again. Don't forget, send me an email, enter to win SuperClean challenge. This is a brand new one, right? So send me an email. In the body of the email, like this, you just write, "Hey Arch, it's me, so-and-so, leave your address or P.O. box." And in the subject line, you're just like, "Hey Arch, I want to enter to win." And what else am I supposed to tell you? Lower 48. I think that's it, right? And my email is in the description of this video. So even if you miss it tonight, like, you can come back and you go over to live shows. Yeah, I'll show you since we'll just bring this up. Let's see. Just click on this. Yeah, that'll work. So we'll bring this over here. And there we go. So that's my home page. So when you get to it, it'll probably look like this. And here's the home button. Now, if you're on a phone, try turning it widthwise, right? Because every time that it's like on, you know, the vertical, it's going to have to get rid of the stuff on the edges. Because there's just no way you would be able to read it. You may have to swipe left or right. I don't know. I don't use the phone for that because it's a horror. We all know that. And then the live button, so it's videos. And this is true for everybody. And then there's the live button. And then these are whatever live shows. And then if you ever want to know somebody's email address, you click on the About tab all the way over here to the right. There'll be details, or if you scroll down, and it says View Email Address. And generally speaking, most YouTubers will put up something over there. It's just, you know, why not, right? So let's see. Don't let this happen to you. And that's actually, I'm monitoring that. And we're going to be checking out a few things. Tonight, let's see. Let me kill display capture. And come back. So, I'm tired tonight. It's like, this is the... Well, I'm tired every night, right? Because that's just, I'm getting to that age where it's like, oh, I can't move. And so I loaded up on some ibuprofen, and I got a painkiller. And other than that, I had a really good day, and I've had a bunch of really good days. I hope everybody out there has had some good days. I sent out a community message or something. So Zippo's been like, you know, he's trying to like help out the channel and help us out and help me out. And he's like, use the community tab, which, you know, I don't know what the hell that thing is. So I went over to the community tab and I just put like a picture. You could put, I think, up to 5 pictures or a video, some kind of short. It's just like an announcement thing. So I'm just, you know, who knows if it worked. I guess you probably would want to put that up even earlier than I did. I think it was about an hour ago, or maybe whenever I got around to it. I wasn't thinking about it because I've been so busy. just trying to get stuff done. And I want to mention again, somewhere maybe mid-show, because one of the fellows out there was asking me about, well, oil, but I'm not going to talk about oil tonight. I want to see if I can get Zippo on for like a show, because he wrote me this big long thing. He's very familiar with oil, and we'll get to that in a minute, but I just wanted to, I'm going to put up the web page. In fact, they just dropped the price. This is Kirker DTM Prep Acid Etch Wash, $68.60. Okay, and let me go back to that my screen to the web page, because I did bring that up. Let's see. Yeah, let's bring this up. Yeah, here it is. So, accept cookies. Yes, I do want to accept cookies. Now, I order stuff from Auto Body Tool Mart. Right, this is actually where I get it, and they just dropped the price to $26.77. So, even though I'm broke, that's about the cheapest I've ever seen it. I'm sure there's going to be a little bit for shipping. You can get it on, I don't know if it's Amazon. You can get it through Walmart. There's a bunch of other places you can get it. I should probably put this, yeah, you know what? I'm going to put this, let me copy this. I'm going to put it down in the, yeah, I'm going to put down in the description, just so I know it's there. More, okay, projects here, we're going to put down Kirker Metal Prep. Put down the link. Right down in the description. Yeah, good. Save it. So now the link is there, so you can click on it yourself. It'll probably take, you know, a couple of minutes for you to see it, but I don't know. Probably be a little bit of a delay. I really like this product. I mentioned that Eastwood sells a metal prep. It's very similar. And, of course, there are other companies that sell rust dissolvers, which is similar, right? But there are some rust dissolvers that are not acid-based. So this is acid-based conditioner, neutralizes flash rust. Great for use after sandblasting. Is there another price? No, I think they're saying 15% off Kirker. Maybe that's included in, and that's why it comes up as $26.77. That's a really good price. Some of the other ones I've seen are like $50. So this is better than $50. Let me come back to display capture. So what do I do with it? Well, that's the stuff that you see, and I'm going to show you a little bit about it tonight, like I was using it and playing around with it. I was playing around with a diluted version of it, too. So DTM means direct to metal. And for those of you that are familiar with auto body, great, you know what I'm talking about. Those that are not, direct to metal, this is an Auto Body Tool Mart. It's a company that handles mostly just supplies for auto body in the field. Direct to metal. Most paints today have this kind of an acid in it, some kind of acid that they use. And the paints are considered to be direct to metal. So when you sand whatever you're working on, right? You sand it, you sand the base metal, and you want to put a primer on it. Then you want to keep working it further, or maybe you want to put Bondo on it. Most of the products have something in it like this, the professional products, so that it etches in as an acid into the base metal, just that much more, gets it even cleaner. You know, real molecular mechanical type bond, right? Because you're scratching the area, which is good, and your primer is going to stick. But this goes even deeper. Then you put, hey, what's up, Jungle Bob? We're talking about DTM metal prep. So hopefully you got to see it. If not, check out the link in the description for what I'm talking about right now, the product. So So rusty metal primer, Rust-Oleum products, right? I think I showed you some last week, and I've done some PaintJucation. And so I talk about using the implement paint, which I really like on the Rust-Oleum implement paints. They're not DTM. If you, let's say you're working on a lawnmower, and like I do, and you just want to touch up an area and get it out. If you clean it really good, and maybe even a little bit of sandpaper, and you put one of those paints on there, it's just gonna, it just rolls off to the side, and maybe you get a little bit on, and then you got to spray it again. And I always often say use a primer like a Krylon or something cheap, or this, right? And it leaves a zinc coating on top so that there's no flash rust. There's a zinc compound in here, and it's very, very light, and it's essentially that when the product dries off, you can either wash it with water, which I do. Like, I actually wash it off. I usually just hose it, because I'll spray this stuff on, a little Scotch Brite, I'll work an area, and then I wash it off. So it etches any remaining paint, like on a lawnmower or whatever. You've cleaned it with SuperClean, you feel like you're pretty cool, and you're good to go. You spray this stuff on, it's going to remove any surface rust or pitting or whatever. It's going to get in there. It does a lot. If you keep like applying it, it's going to remove all the rust. But I don't even go that far. It will convert the top layer, and then when you rinse it off, right, you dry everything off, it'll haze over like white. And I'll show you guys that in a little bit. And that protects the base metal, and it'll stay. Like, if you use it full strength, it might even survive a day out in the rain. It's not going to turn, rusty right away. Imagine that, right? And it starts to rain, or you didn't dry it off all the way, and now you got this flash rust all over everything, and you come and you're busy and you punch out or whatever, and you come back the next day and it's humid, and you're like, what? That won't happen with this. And if you think there's too much powdery surface on the top, which it really won't interfere with anything, but let's say you think there's too much, you just, grab a rag, spray a little thinner on it, like mineral spirits or some kind of a, cleaner, wipe it off. Right? Sometimes I just use old gasoline on a rag or something, and I toss it so it doesn't stink up the shop. That's because I get so much of it, guys. I get so many lawnmowers, and I got to pull the gas out of all these things. And the oil. Right? Pull the oil out of all those machines like you see in my garden. Right? At some point, the gas and the oil comes out of them, and it gets recycled or reused or whatever. So I'm going to show you a little about that in a bit. Something I was working on. And just to kind of get to the meat of everything, because I don't think I want to do too long of a night because I'm tired and the lights are bothering my eyes. So don't let this happen to you. So I got some stuff I want to show you guys. So last week, let me minimize this. So last week I was showing you the bougie machine, right? You guys remember it's listen, guys, it's winter, it's snowblower time, right? It's like I'm going to be working on snowblowers and stuff for a little while. So if it's boring, I'm sorry. But this was like a really nice looking green Frontier, I believe the name is. And I didn't have a lot of time to do research on it, but I think I was like trying to figure out, should I mix and match with this other Craftsman that I have? And I started poking around and taking measurements, and the transmission was no good. We got the motor working really good. Last week I showed you a bit about the horror on the overhead valve Briggs engine and got that running. And I'm like, okay, so I have a really nice clean machine that needs an auger transmission, and the motor's sweet, everything else is nice. What do I do with it? The tractor section's really good. I've got this other Craftsman with a bigger barrel. Maybe I could steal the transmission. Maybe I can clean up the barrel. Does the back end of the snowblower fit the front end? Oh, yes, it does. Oh, look, the transmissions are the same. Oh, wait a minute, who's Frontier? Well, Craftsman, that's MTD, right? So you can see what's going through my mind. And I'm like, what do I do with this damn thing, right? Because then I start looking into the transmission, and the gear is $100 and change. And then if the gasket breaks, that's $30. I'm like, what? I'm like, I haven't even sold. I got that another beautiful snowblower here. It hasn't sold. People are offering me like $300 for it because it just hasn't snowed. So I'm trying to think of, what do I do? Do I just grab the whole front end? Well, that's what I'm going to show you. All right. This is bad. All right. Yeah, check that out, Jungle Bob. And for the price, like I said, I got to get more. I used up the last little bit, and I'm going to show you guys that in a minute. Let me slow down because I'm like going a million miles a minute. Yeah, I'll give you some shots of me cleaning it. So I'll back up a little bit, but just to get started. All right, so this barrel probably kill the. You see, I sanded it and I washed it. It had been cleaned about a year ago. This was a parts machine. And then I'm like, okay, let me sand it and knock off the rest of the paint. I had re-cleaned it at some point this year. And I'm like, all right, let me knock off the rest of the paint. Maybe I'll use this whole front section. And so I had a little bit of that DTM metal prep. I put a little bit of water in it. I cleaned everything up. I went over it. And I'm like, okay. See, there's the tractor section of the bougie machine. It fits. They're the same. Everything is the same except that this tank is a little bit bigger. You know, the auger tank. Everything is the same. So I'm trying to figure out what do I do. So as I was playing with it, this red one here, I'm like, do I paint it? I just painted a couple of machines. I don't know if I want to paint it now. It's, you know, if it starts getting cold out, it started to rain. I'm like, I can't have the windows open. I'm like, it's kind of rusty. It's still rusty. I may have to make it prettier than I want to make it because it's blotchy, and I start looking at the transmission and everything, and the back section, the transmission was kind of, it was there, but it was rusty. It was going to need work. All right, let's back up. Let me see if I can go up a day. Just to show you a bit about kind of cleaning it and whatever. So I used the rusty metal primer. And this is what it looked like before I got started. So this was a parts machine last year. Took the motor, took a few other things. Doesn't owe me anything. And you can see it's not terrible, but it's not great. Now there's a tranny. The inside of the can is kind of raw and nasty, and I thought, well, we could try to paint it. I don't think I showed the underneath side. So let's back up a little bit more. And then I was like, well, I'll grab this guy, right? And I'll sand it up. I got rid of most of the stuff. And you can see how it came out. The more I was playing, those are not the right tires for it. Or tires or rims, right? They're too big, and the rim's too long. The tubes are too long. And I just started working with it. I'm like, you know, I don't know. I don't know what, you know, right. Like add a little rust to it and call it a classic, right? Call it patina. But here, people are really particular. That's the problem I have. So I went a little bit deeper. And this is while it's still wet. Now, you could still, you know, save this can and keep it around for something else. And then you could spray the whole can and make the can really nice. Because that's the part that always gets really nasty. So let's back up a little bit. Well, you can see here, right? I'm playing around with this thing. I started taking everything apart. And I'm like, well, you could use the rear tractor and put the front can on from the red guy and put it on the green one. And I have paint, and I think I could match it and everything. And I wound up going to bed, like giving up and doing some other stuff. Like everything's the same. Like the whole, it's not. It's weird because this can is like a 26-inch can, but it's got a tiny, it's got a much smaller auger assembly in it. Everything is smaller in the auger, but it's the same size. So it's not as nice in that regard. Like you would want a bigger impeller, you'd want a bigger barrel, you'd want maybe bigger blades. Look, see, I got the farm and implement. It's close. Like, all right, so this thing is a John Deere, but it's not. because it's made for like Depot, Lowe's, and you guys out there that are familiar with like some of the John Deere tractors, like the LT 110 or something, right? That you get at like Depot, the transmissions go, they don't climb hills. It's not made of the same quality, right? That's kind of what the bougie machine is. And it says Frontier. I think Frontier used to be big. They might even be out of business now. I don't see these here anymore. This is the only one I've ever seen, and it's in really nice shape. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell happened to this thing. So as I'm looking at it, I'm like back and forth now, and I'm looking. Let's see the nails in there. You guys see the nail? Let me pause this. See it? There's 2 nails run through, right, the impeller assembly where the pins would go, right? They're like compression pins. I can't think of the name of it right now. Nails, right? And I think I show it here. That transmission is like an MTD style, common sort of newer transmission. That's the auger tranny. What you see? Look at all of that. Look at all of that play, right? And I wasn't even trying hard because I didn't have gloves on. And the edges of those steel things are raw as hell. They'll rip me to pieces if I would have slipped. So I'm like, just to show you. What's up, Robert? He says, and Brad. Hey, Brad. I get a kick out of what Jungle Bob said. He's clear coated, and I'm still thinking about that, right? I could still... the ends on the light you got converted to LED are called tombstones. Tombstones? Yeah, they look like tombstones. Yeah, I know what he's talking about. I did that video on how to convert your fluorescent lights to LED. And the connectors look like tombstones. Yeah. What did you call the fixture itself again, Robert? What was the name of that again? You had a name. Kind of a cool name. I know the name, I just never associated with the fixture. Anyway, so where was I? So I'm like going back and forth between these 2 things. I'm like, what can I do with this? Like, it just feels like if I get a, where is that gear? Do I have it around here? This way. Hold on. I think I still have it. I'll show you a picture of it. Yeah, oh wait, I'll just show you a picture instead of moving around in the dark and everything. So now I'm at the point where I'm like, what do I do? Right? What do I do? It's too nice to part this thing out. Right? Look at it. Does it look like you want to part it out? And I'm like, I don't want to spend $100, maybe $150 on a stupid gear. And so I'm like, okay, let's take it apart. Okay, it's broken. Let me take it apart. So I start taking it apart, and it's coming apart. Right, the whole damn thing came right apart, no problems. Let's see, am I saying something in here? Here, let me go to desktop audio and see if I'm saying anything. I think it'll work with desktop audio. I can't hear it though. I think there's something wrong with this desktop audio thing. Oh, I see. Wait. This one? Oh, I can't hear any desktop audio. Well, that's annoying. I think I had that problem last week because they did an update. Let's see. I go to properties. I think it's this. Maybe that's it. I don't know. Before I screw everything up. So, I'll have to test it. Like, let's take it apart some more. Okay. Now, usually when you deal with an auger bearing, they usually are a little bit jammed. I'm like, no, this thing came right apart. I'm like, wow, everything is going good. Go a little further along. I got to figure out how I just like I took everything apart. I'm like, do I want to use this barrel? Everything came apart. It didn't argue. It didn't have a heart attack, right? Truffles, right, truffles. I'm like, okay. So now I have, I guess you guys can't hear this because I can't hear it. I think it's because I muted. I think it's for some reason or other it's pulling from the wrong source, because if yeah, see, it'll, that's because I muted it over here. All right, I don't know how to deal with that right now. I don't care. So far, so good. I'm like, all right, so I could fix this for $100. Let's take apart some more of it. All right, so now I go into the transmission of it. Okay, and I'm like, yeah, all right, now you can see, and wait to flip it over. And the transmission came apart. I was able to get, you know, the augers off. There you go. Look at all that brass. Okay, but the worm gear is good, which is really opinion. Gasket's okay. I don't know if I flip it, but yeah, it's just filled with brass and grease. Right, so it's filled with grease. And I'm like, well, this is the same transmission. I'm like looking at it. I'm like, well, maybe I'll just steal this gear or the whole transmission. And I checked it. It seemed to be fine. Like, let's take that apart now. Yeah. Yeah, huh? Let's see if I get a little closer look. Yeah, there's a different look. All right, it's carnage. Right, which you would expect that if somebody ran over something and they put a bolt in or something. But it wasn't just that they put a bolt in. I found, certainly on one side, I found a shear pin, shear bolt. And why those were in there, I think because somebody put nails in there, I think because they thought it wasn't engaging, maybe it was slipping. The pins that hold that in are compression pins, which again, I can't think of the name, but they're not going to break. Right, they're assembly pins. They fold over. They're drift pins or something. You're not going to break those. So I'm thinking, all right, he ran over something, but the transmission should not have completely failed. It really shouldn't have. So let's go to take apart the red transmission and housing. Right, when I say transmission, I'm talking about auger transmission. So I managed to get this off, all right, and I'm trying to sand it because I got the sense that it's going to get stuck. I could tell. I tried different things to get it off. So I'm trying to remove any rust or whatever, and at this point, I don't care what happens to this shaft because I just want at the transmission. And I could tell by everything else that things were not going to go well right away. So let's see. Do I have that spot? Yeah, I do. Let's see. It could just, by the way, it could just be this. Let's back up a little bit. Yeah. So I'm going to put some heat in it here. I should be able to hear my... Even though you guys down there is where we really want the heat, but you don't want to put it there. You'll damage the bearing. And if you notice, we'll take this hammer handle, and as I twist it, right, I don't know if you can see, it's putting some pressure on. I'm not hearing. There's a couple of spots we can do it. Up here is a little bit better. So we can put some pressure in it that way. There it is. It's on. Now I fixed it. Not that you need to hear it, but actually I want to turn it down. So it don't want to go. I'm cooking it. Okay, that's the settling. And then I start banging on it. Okay, and then I try the next thing. And I try a block of wood. And I try more heat source. All right.
I got a flame around it. It goes to volatility.
Whatever. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm freaking out. Right. Oh, and hold on. Go to the next one. And it's this isn't opening in the same field. I have to keep moving it. So what I tried the air hammer.
Too much in your way.
Look at the smoke everywhere.
Yeah. Maybe I'll
yeah, no, air hammer didn't work.
All right, let me see what else I want to do.
All right. Now we're going to try good old-fashioned front end, automotive front end tools, right? These are the tie rod
It's actually come
Well,
up quite a
one
bit.
tie
And
rod
if I run
kind of
out
moved it, tie rod remover. Then two of them. Right. Oh, we're getting somewhere, right? I mean, at this point, right, you're just like, you gotta get off, right? Still not off, like, still banging on it. I'm almost there. I almost get it all off. Still banging. It's off. Okay, and it's a mess. So you can see on that other shot that I did, it's off, but it's a mess. Now we need to get the rest of it out.
Sweeten this up there.
It doesn't want to come out of the hole. The bearing is locked around it. I tried a number of things. I'm like, because if you want to save it, right, you know, you got to get it out in one piece. So I'm just going to keep clicking forward. Let's see. Where are we now? Oh, I'm still working on it. Still trying to clean it and try to make some room, right? And I'm still fooling around with it. And I'm banging it again. I think in the next one, you're going to see me slamming on it, right? I'm like, come here, you. It's still not out, right? It's just like another cut. See, here I'm sanding it.
Probably not. But
just trying to polish the shaft, make sure there's nothing in its way.
Then get a proper feel for it.
Yeah, you got a proper feel for it. Shut up, Arch. Let's see, what's this? What am I doing here?
A little higher.
So I got it down, but it's stuck.
It's close. It's
on
tight
the
to
end.
the case.
It's not moving. It's not going to
a
move.
little bit more height.
I got the height. I'm banging on it.
Yeah.
Extend the height so this room, working with gravity, and trying to buzz thing, to bang it thing, trying to push it down, right? At some point, you would just distort things so much from applying so much force. You know, the green one just kind of like slid apart.
If I can do that.
So I don't know how long I was fooling around with this, right? Let me back up now. Let's move you out of the way. Back to you. And then I think I was at the point here where I was like, all right, I've had enough of this. Okay. Out comes the flame wrench. All right. Oxyacetylene. I'm like, I need this transmission. You know, I'm sick of fooling with this thing. Yeah, Jungle Bob goes, torch it. Pickle fork it. Yeah, I did. Pickle fork. Now we got, you know, we got some muscle. At this point, I'm not interested in saving anything other than the transmission. So I'm like, okay, we're going to blast off the auger pieces first. Let's see. And even with cutting the bearing, it wouldn't let go, right? It just, I'm not coming out. I don't know if you guys have ever run into something like this, but I mean, I certainly have, but it's just one of these things where no matter what I did, I tried to be a little careful. I didn't, you know, I was like, well, if I don't damage it, I might be able to use some of this, right? Now, keep in mind, in the back of my head, I know this thing was a parts machine last year. I know, Arch did lose it, okay? That's why when I make the video, I want to try to have these kind of highlights. And I'm banging on it again. It doesn't want to go. All right, back comes the torch, right? I think this time I finally get it. You know, big lump. I broke a handle on one of my lump hammers. Seriously. All right. One of these. This is the bigger lump hammer. Yeah. Hopes and dreams. Finally. Hopes and dreams. Finally get it out. Now, my struggles are not over. No, they're not. I'm not done yet. Right. Oh, my God. I'm getting exhausted just explaining this. Right. So I'm like, okay, it's the next day. I'm tired now. It started to rain. And, what is this? This might be before or was, I don't remember where I am right now. Where am I? Is this before or after? Let's find out. Because sometimes I take things out of sequence. You know, I'll take, you know, different shots at different times. I'm like, ooh, grab a shot at it. All right, so now I've got these things out, right? The little guy, this little guy here is the one from the Bougie Green machine. She's in beautiful shape. She's really good. This is the old, the bigger one. You see that bearing, right? It's actually, it's been compressed. It's been hit on the thrust side, so it's wearing. And the gear looks good. That's the good gear, all right? My problem is I'm not done. I see the gear. It's so close. You know, maybe I could get at it. I got one of the auger things off. You know, the blender part, right? The part that's the blender. Well, the whole damn thing's a fucking blender, isn't it? And I'm like, all right, now I got to get this other blender thing off, this black blender thing. I can't get the gear out because that shaft is full of rust. You got to have to drive it off. You got to polish the shaft. I'm like, I can't get this damn thing off, right? For some reason, I can't hear this. This particular application, I can't hear anything off. What is that? I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes I just don't know. Do I hear it? I don't. Doesn't look like it doesn't have any output. So out comes more tools. Right, in the vise it goes. All right, let's put a monkey wrench on it. Right, I noticed that there was a burr. It must have broken a shear pin at some point, and a burr or something got kicked up in here. Like, that's not good. It's deformed. It's got junk in it. It's got rust in it. And the length of a shaft like that, two shafts that are on top of each other like that, the amount of friction, you get a burr in there and you get rust in there, the chances of you getting that off are very slim. So I tried, out comes big old Mr. Wrench, right? And I'm like, maybe I can twist it. I wound up giving up, and I brought it outside the next day, and I heated this with the oxyacetylene. And I tried to bang it and twist it off. I knew it wasn't going to come off. I'm not wasting any more gas. So I'm done wasting gas. Let's see, where are we? All right. I tried polishing this section of the shaft, thinking, right, see what I'm saying here? Like I'm pointing to, I'm thinking, well, maybe I can just drive it this way and be done with this. Nope, I want to go, right? And I can't bang properly because this stupid thing is in my way. And I can't get that off. So I have a $100 brass beauty. Over $100, really. Like that, I need you, right? Come to daddy, right? You need to come off now. Come to me. It will go. I'm like, all right, I don't know what to do. Do I give up? So a cooler head prevails. All right. And I'm like, all right, I'm sleeping on it. I'm thinking about it. And, you know, this is how my mind works. I don't know about you guys, but, you know, the one good thing about what's left of my mind, the part that's not thinking about chicks and whatever and else and whatever, I'm like, so what I'm going to do this morning is going to lock it in the thing outside. I'm going to heat the shaft. If I can't get it off and knock it off or spin it off, we're going to cut it right there, right there with Mr. Sawzall. Take out Mr. Sawzall, put the blade nice on it, and liberate. Lance it right there, and then at least I'll have something to work with. Because this is done. This thing is done. Things are stuck on. And if I had tried to use this whole can, that whole auger piece right there would be jammed on. So it would destroy a transmission because the shear pin wouldn't do anything. It would wind up like this. So I can't sell that. I'm not selling that, right? Once I saw that it was locked and it wasn't going to behave, I'm like, I can't sell this. We got to fix this properly. We might as well put the time into the green machine because it is in nice shape. And I think I finally, where am I? I think I finally get it all apart here. And then I start where, yeah, see, stubby shaft. Here's the remnants. I'm happy now. It's the next day. I got a fresh head. It's nice out. Right? I don't have rain and cold. Actually, it was nice. And all I have to do is clean this section up here and then drive it off the short distance I need to go. So fortunately, that all worked out pretty good. I was, you know, let's move forward a little bit. And I want to talk a little bit about in a minute about why. Now, I started to shoot this and I wasn't paying attention. I was happy now. And I wasn't paying attention and the battery ran out. That almost never happens to me, but it happens to us. You know, I'm sure you've heard a lot of YouTubers be like, oh, I ran out of the battery at that critical moment, right? When you're like excited. Like, oh, I can show this to the fellas. Let me get this. Yeah, what happened? Oh, the battery ran out. Nice. There goes that moment. Can't reproduce that stuff. So now we just so this is probably a separate video that I might make. Is like to show people maybe, you know, what goes wrong. Maybe you don't want to do this, and here I'm polishing the shaft. I'm polishing the shaft, fellas. Let me show you how I polish the shaft. Okay. Nobody wants to see that, Arch. No. So I spent some time polishing it up, and I want to do tips and tricks and stuff like that about, how I like to clean up a shaft and make it nice, and the different grits that I use. And you don't want to take away metal, really, but you have so much rust on it that rust has eaten some of the metal and it's in the way, and of course you're not going to be able to assemble anything. So I spent a little bit of time out. Was it today? I don't even remember. I don't even know where I am right now. Right, this whole thing blew me out. And nice day outside with the vise, just spending a little bit of time getting everything nice. You see, look at how much, by the way, look at how much that fine sandpaper, how much rust it kicked up, even though it looked like it was clean. So, yeah. And I want to make sure that at this point now, so I think this is the second, this is the shaft from the green machine, and we got to get off that broken gear, but I might as well prep the shaft properly and get everything done, make it nice, and then I drove it off. I'm surprised I can't hear this. Usually this works, but something went wrong. It's probably something to do with the output for this thing here, because I'm listening through my headset and I have the speakers muted. Oh, what's up, TJ? Yeah, that's where I probably lost the battery. So now I have a really sweet, clean shaft. I'm just talking about a little bit of something I found on the shaft where the gear would go. But look at this. Look at that. See? It's just getting hung up a little bit right there. But you see how nice that is? That way, you can assemble everything without a heart attack, without trying to bang anything. Because you shouldn't have to bang anything on shaft assemblies like this. Then something's really wrong. Yeah, he did. You're right, Rain. He missed. Did I just freak out? I think I just had one of those moments where I I re-lost my junk, right? So, and just a little bit more. This is the finer sandpaper. They usually call this like crocus cloth. It comes on a big roll. Some of you may be familiar. Machinists like to use this. I learned a lot of this stuff in like machine shops. I'm not a machinist. I wasn't trained as a machinist, but I worked in old school. The Greeks taught me this, so that's the one thing that's cool about living in New York, because you're around everyone, right? And everybody has something to share. So clean all this stuff out. Now, after I'm done with the video, I want to kind of just run past you guys why I think it failed. And I wish I had the audio working on this. So I'm just going to clean it up. See, look, that came nice and clean. And every shaft, every surface is addressed. And I think that's the end of it here. Let me go to... And I'll just go through this real quick. So putting everything back together again, right? Look at how clean this is, right? It's like, this thing's almost like new, except for the little bit of, rust paint issues. And even though I don't like the machine per se, because it's got a very small impeller and, there's really nothing wrong with this thing. Right? Those were fine. I just heard a noise. I don't know why I'm not hearing it. Like how nice and clean that is, right? All polished nice. I'm talking about putting no C's on it. Right, drop that thing on, the pulley's on. Everything went together nice. I talk about spinning it over by hand, right? Feeling it to make sure each step of the way, make sure everything feels nice. Almost done. And anyway, I found another little issue over here. This idler tensioner, right? I added a washer because it was leaning so far to the side that it was almost trying to shove the belt off. And this is how it comes from the factory. There's like little things that I saw. Remember, this is the motor that I couldn't get the oil out because the oil port wasn't drilled all the way. And for the tube, extension tube. So she's all shear pinned up. Everything is golden. We'll test it in a minute. Let me come back to here. What did I do with that? I should be able to see. Yeah, one of these will do it. Right, this is actually OBS recordings. Is that what's wrong with yours? It could be. That's why I didn't want to do it, because if we ran into problems, what we need for you is a parts machine just in case. And that's why I want to talk about that. Hi, Christina. Oh, look, I can hear myself. I don't know why I couldn't hear myself before.
Just destroyed.
See, there's the gears.
All right.
That's my daughter.
Now, what? I'm not sure.
I've arrived. Notice how, see,
okay,
I just got to say something really fast. Don't take offense, Christina, right? That's my daughter, right? She's beautiful. I love her and everything. But you notice how females, right, how they perceive things. Like, she shows up and she goes, I've arrived. I am watching my language, right? I am. I'm trying. I'm behaved. She knows how I am. I come out with stuff. She's like, oh, Dad. You know. Yeah.
It's a helically cut gears. And
see, that's
going.
It's expensive because of the way the gears are cut. They're on an angle. You can't put it in the wrong direction. I'm explaining this.
If we were to put it on the other way,
I'm just stopping it and going back to sleep. I hope you feel better, sweetheart. Get some rest.
Okay. They're going in this direction. So
yeah,
if we were to flip it upside down, it still goes in the same direction. If we go that way, they all go in the same direction. The only difference being is the thrust side would change.
You can change the thrust side by flipping it.
Gets pushed when this pinion gear or this worm gear starts spinning.
So this might be a separate video because I want to show people how to assemble something like this properly and cleanly. And I talked about rehearsing. Before you put grease and oil in, observe everything while it's clean before you shove stuff in your way.
Here, so it's not any particular
if you're not comfortable, if you've never done this before, right, and you know some of us out there, remember, fellas, not all of us are advanced level mechanics. We're learning. I'm always learning too.
Without all the grease.
But if somebody's on the edge, we want to push them in the right direction forward. We don't want to push them to the point where they think they're going to screw up and they're not going to do it.
Now earlier, I just
sometimes I was gave up on this. I was like, I hate this thing.
So it's not going to get in our way.
So I put a little bit of grease. Not a lot. I would make sure it was in everything. And this is why I want to talk a bit about this. Some flats on the bushings. These are oil-like bushings.
Okay, so that flat, dive it down a little bit before you put...
And getting everything lined up. Look at that. Right. Isn't that clean? I'm sorry, yeah. Yeah, because the audio isn't set right. I'll turn it down. So let's see, do I put a little bit of gear lube in? I assembled it with a little bit of gear lube too. And, you know, tighten it slowly and then feel it and test it. And make sure it feels nice when you go to spin it.
First, let's brake seal.
So now I put some grease in, but I should have put the oil in first before I've added a little bit of grease.
And I'm going to turn it upright.
And so I added a whole bunch of oil into this. Gear lube.
Pee out. You start
all right.
Just to see. Let me dump you back a little more. Just to see how's it feel. Oh, should be no.
So that's what we're going to get to, Ray.
Smooth like butter, fellas. This feels so good. I almost
it's
don't
like
want
butter.
to put it on. Right? I want it. That feels nice. All right, enough fooling around.
Right.
I think
you
I
can
made my point.
feel, like, especially with things like gears and bearings and stuff, you can feel it. You get used to the feeling. let's see, what's the next one I want to go to? And then we're going to go backwards, and I want to talk about why I think it happened. And then the last thing I did was, this is the actual the auger main bearing, right? So you could replace it. Now's the time to do that, right? But it was in nice shape. So what I did was I picked up the seal with the pick. And
seal here. And then it's been shoved out of the way. It's all on top of the cage or to the perimeter.
Sort of re-explaining again why I think the gear failed.
Run into, by the way, as with overfilling the grease on that.
All right, so I shoved some grease back in there. Not a lot, because there's no place for it to go, and this is what I mean.
Grease is a combination of soap.
And then I put everything together. It feels really nice. It felt good before, because everything on this thing was good. It had an accident.
Do service intervals on a transmission like that.
All right, and I think...
Down the road.
All right, I think I say it.
So just like I'm saying, if this is packed and a bunch of years go down the road and you want to put more grease in, where's the grease going to go? Is it going to blow out a seal? You're not going to be putting enough pressure on it to do that, trying to fill it. So I recommend oil at that point. If you pack it with grease when you put it together, you're going to reduce the ability to do service intervals on it, and then you're going to blow the training out. All right, so that's a mistake. All right. All right, we're ready to put stuff together.
I'm going to
swap
re-say
cameras
that.
and such,
and let me bring up the image that I want to show you, so you can see the image. Is this it? Yeah, this is good enough. All right, let's stop and pause it. Okay. All right, now. This is like right before I went to wipe it out. There was a lot of grease in there. When you start wiping it out, you realize how much grease is in there. Remember, there's a gear that goes in there, and then there's the shaft, and there's the bearings or bushings. All of that and the grease in that one cavity. It's got seals on every shaft, so it's essentially a sealed unit. And what I talk about all through this is the problem of grease versus oil. Now, most transmissions, let me back to me, grease versus oil. And let's see if I can formulate a good way to say this, which is why I'm going to try to put together a video that, try to really figure out how to put together this video. Is don't let this happen to you, right? So the first part of don't let this happen to you is service intervals for a machine like this. Remember, it's exposed to the outside in ways that lawnmowers are not. You're talking about water, salt water, potential salt water, rain, snow, shafts, and shafts rusting up and not being lubricated, and you can't get it apart. So that's the first problem. If you can't get the damn thing apart, it's garbage. The way that red machine had to come apart, if you had all of the replacement pieces, the shafts, the auger blades, the gearbox, the bushings, all of that, you could do it. But let's say you bring your machine in and it's in a condition like that, and because you hit something, and maybe it spun one of the maybe it broke one of the shear pins, but you put a shear pin in and something's not right. You're hitting a flat spot. The auger's not spinning all the time. You hear it. You might even hear it. And then it gets really bad. Now you bring it in, or yourself, you go start looking at it, or you bring it in. Let's say you bring it to a real mechanic, and they give you a huge number. It's not worth it. That's probably what happened to the green machine. They tried fooling around with it. They guessed at a few things, and somebody might have given them a really high price because they probably gave them a worst case scenario price. Not necessarily the worst case scenario of the red machine, but a price. Maybe $400, something like that. It's a lot of work to get it apart and put it all back together again. I don't know. I'm guessing. Now, if it's like the green machine and everything comes apart, and somebody like me could do it, and let's say I took it all apart, regardless of how it happened, I took it all apart and I got to that point, and I see it just needs a gear, the gasket is good, Everything else is okay. And it all came apart and it didn't fight me. $250, something like that. I don't know, somewhere in maybe 300. I don't know. Let's just throw a number out. I don't really know what they get to do that, because it has a lot to do with how easily it comes apart. Well, for a $1,000 machine that's been good to you and maybe you neglected it, you might be thinking, okay, I'm going to let them do it. If it's been neglected and it winds up like many of them do, like the red machine, all bets are off, because the person can't get it apart. You or the mechanic, you can't get it apart. And even if you do get it apart, like what I went through, you spent the day doing it and you don't have the replacement pieces. And those are significant pieces, right? They're going to cost you a lot of money. So I might even just do a video of something, maybe the title of like maybe why you wouldn't want to rebuild the auger assembly, or a broken transmission, or however I word it, right? Maybe you wouldn't want to do that, because if you look at the overall condition of the machine, you see a lot of rust. It hasn't been taken care of. Maybe you spun one of those, auger blades, and the shear pin is broken, but then you go over to the other one, like with me, and you take the pin out, and it won't move on the shaft, and this TJ has a similar problem. Okay. And I said to him, we don't really want to touch that, okay, because it might be fine. If you keep oiling it, it might come back. If you keep putting oil in it. Now, the red one had grease fittings, so it could have been lubricated. TJ's does not have grease fittings. The green one does not have grease fittings. I put everything back together with oil and grease, so it should be fine for a long time. You can get it apart, but maybe you can't, right? You can get it apart theoretically, but look at what I had to do to get it apart. It was useless after that. There's nothing left. So you're in a situation where if one more thing breaks, either you throw it out or you need a parts machine. Now, what causes that? Now, backing up, obviously, I covered over some of what causes it, which is neglect. Wrong shear pin. Can be a wrong shear pin, because not every shear pin is like every other shear pin. Some of them have one sort of breakaway area. Others have two, even though they may be the same size, like a 5/16 or quarter 20 bolt, depending upon the size of the machine. Not lubricating it. Over here, people don't like to bring things in for service. They just don't want to be bothered, right? They don't care. For whatever reason, that's how most people are. Service shops don't do well. It's usually repair, not service. People think, oh, I need my lawnmower tuned up. Does it run? No. Well, that's a repair. It's not tune up. Well, how much is it? Oh, I'm not paying that. I can go get a Walmart lawnmower for that. Yeah, but that's a piece of crap. You have a nice lawnmower. I don't care. Now let's get to the transmission itself. So let's just go back and look at that again. All right, so as I've covered over neglect, rust, salt, and things not being lubricated. And you can service these transmissions because there's a hole with a bolt in it on the side where you could pump more grease in. Now, let me see if I can develop this, right? Because you have to try to follow me on this. There's a lot of grease in here. And like I said, the shaft is in there, the bearings are in there, the bushings, whatever, the gear. There's no room left. And I have seen this where people pack this with grease, thinking if you pack it with grease, that's better. More is better. No, this is a situation where less is more. For two reasons. Generally speaking, transmissions like this is a differential, is what it really is. And it's a ring gear or worm gear / pinion gear. When they spin, as with most gears, at any speed, it will throw the grease off over time as it's spinning. Centrifugal force will do that. It'll splatter it like a chain, a bicycle chain. If you just oil it and you don't have like a clingy formula like I like to use with waxes and stuff. So it's throwing it around the outside. You can see it here. It's throwing it all around the gear to the outside. There's a little bit of white over here. It's not really wrapped around the shaft. It winds up not being where it's needed. And it's a cold operation. I don't care what low temp grease you use, it's low temp operation. And grease is grease. That's the way it behaves. It sticks to the sides of things. So it gets thrown off, sticks to the side. It's not on the gears. The gears are under a lot of stress. They're not being lubricated. They begin to wear. And remember, this is a steel pinion gear, right? Worm gear with a brass, softer crown or ring gear. And usually, on all the older snowblowers, there was gear lube inside of there, oil. So the gear would spin and it would wick up and lift up the oil and spray it all over itself. And yeah, like double aught. And gear lubes, the better ones, have this thing that they call climbing ability. As the gears and things are spinning, a gear lube is designed to lift and climb with the gear and stay with the gear. And it's that climbing ability, and partly that's the sulfur additives and other things, right? High pressure additives. There's additive packages in these lubes to help it to climb and stay with the gear as it's spinning. Greases can't do that. So that's the first problem. The grease. The second problem is, and I've seen people even on the web do this, is they pack it with grease. Okay. What's up, hetero? We'll just call him Rocks. Yeah, he missed my freak out session, right? Because now I'm exhausted. So we're back to the oil itself, right? It will try to wrap itself around the gear while it's moving. The grease will get pushed out of the way. And if you pack this cavity, remember, it's not vented to atmosphere. It's sealed in every direction. So if it's packed and you go to stick the grease gun in there to try to get a dollop or two, a few pumps to lay on the gear or gears, right? There's nowhere for it to go. All the old grease is still in there that's years old, that has dried out and stuck to everything and is nowhere near where it needs to be. And you come along with your grease gun thinking, oh, I've packed it and now I'm going to add more. What are you going to add more to? There's nowhere for it to go. So usually when I service these things, what I'll try to do is I'll pour some either regular oil in, because remember, there's grease in there. So the ones with grease, I'll shoot some regular motor oil in there and see if I can get it in. And if I can get it in, then I'll try a little bit of, like 80, 90 or whatever it is I was using, right? Regular gear lube. And then I might follow up with a couple of pumps of grease. Just a couple of pumps. Because if you leave room in the cavity, let's say every year or every couple of years you come in and it's your machine and you want, let's say you go through all of this, and if you don't pack it, you just grease it and put a little oil on it, right? You come back, there's room for you to add a little bit more grease later on. And it might be 6 years or 10 years before you fill this thing up with grease or a combination of grease and oil. And now it's packed and now you can't get any more in it. And maybe then it breaks. Or you take it apart, right? And you clean it all out and you start again. Because there's nowhere for this stuff to go. And it won't go back onto the gear if it's grease. It's going to just get shoved out of the way. So I think that's the problem, is what happens to some of these things. And so if there's grease in it, put oil in it. Because you're going to shorten the life of it. And if you pack it, if you pack it with grease and you put it together, now you're not going to have anywhere to go in the future. There's no more service intervals. That grease somehow is going to be pushed out of the way to wherever it thinks it can go. And some people think that if you really pack the crap out of it, the grease will stay close. But it won't. It will harden, and it will find a way to get away from the gears. And the gears will just skim it, and they won't grab it because it's stuck. It's grease. It's old. So Lucas is like mostly like additives and stuff. I just use like a good, really doesn't matter. What did I buy? Oh, it's up there. It's back there somewhere. I don't feel like getting it. Anything that... Oh, that feels better. That's giving me a headache. Anything I think that you can shove in there that's of like some kind of a gear lube would be the best way to go to start off with. The second best thing was if you could just take some motor oil and a squirt gun and shoot some in there, because it'll mix up with the grease a little bit. It'll wet it up. And then maybe that will get around the gear, like if you get enough of it in there. I mean, theoretically, yeah, I put oil in your snowblower. Yeah, DJ, I put oil in it. Took the thing out and I squirted oil in there. Now, not yours is a little bit different, so yours is actually a little bit better transmission. These are the newer variants, and you could see they are vulnerable, and I've seen them break before. Generally speaking, I don't play with them. And one of the reasons why I had the idea of just putting the red can on, you know, the tractor section from the green one was because of the work involved, right? If you could avoid, you know, think of my position, right? I have a lot of different parts. I've got a lot of different machines. I go out into the yard, you know, and check out the garden and see, you know, all right, what can I slap together so I can get it out of here that's decent, that's going to be reliable. And I was thinking about it, I'm like, well, painting for me is way more easier than trying to rip apart transmission stuff with shafts that are rusty and everything, and that gets involved, and you need a lot of different tools. And I was trying to avoid it, whereas painting is like an easier thing to do, right? And, you know, I'm sure you guys can understand. So it needs to be drilled and tapped top and bottom. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, yes. If you take yours apart, like if it's for yourself, I suppose you could do it as a thing. But you know, I wouldn't do that. Like I would just put oil in it and push it down the line, right? Because you're trying to make money, right? These things take a while to fix and stuff. If you wanted to modify it, yeah, that would be an interesting thing to do. Take it all apart, get everything all nice and cleaned up, and install Zerk fittings, like grease fittings, a couple of places down the shaft, right? Because usually there's like one, and that grease tends not to make it all the way down the shaft, right? You know, you pump it up, but it comes out some places the easiest. Yeah, for your own, right? Definitely. Add a couple of more grease fittings on the shafts for the auger blades, right? That way, there's more likely that you're going to get that grease to go down the length of the shaft. That's one thing to do. And then while you're there, you have a good idea. I think you got a great idea. Modify the transmission housing and get everything back together again. And then you probably will never have to touch it again. Theoretically, right, if you have a proper lube points on your machine, and generally speaking, they do, but like this one and another one that I had, right, they're getting, you know, the newer ones, they're getting cheaper. Like, they don't put grease fittings. They don't put them in cars, for goodness sakes, right? They don't put grease fittings on tie rod ends and stuff like that anymore. It dies, and then you have to pay a mechanic to put a whole nother one on with no grease fitting. So theoretically, if you go over these machines, like I have machines out there that are like 30 years old that I wind up fixing up and refurbishing. If the person took really good care of it, I actually traded. Over the past couple of years, there were a couple of trades, because I like to do trades. I advertise that I'm willing to think about a trade. So I'll sell you a new machine, whatever it is, and I'll give you a discount based upon what you have, send me pictures, right? And that's usually in my ads. And every now and then, so I had somebody that came by with, they wanted, I think it was a Toro or a Honda. It was definitely an upgrade, but they had an older Sears Craftsman, one of those green ones. Let's just slip in my brain right now because I have a headache. You guys know which one. It's the Eager one, I think it was, or something like that. This thing was mint. It was like a garage queen the guy kept it really nice. Of course I took it, and I wound up reselling it. I went over it. It needed a little bit of attention. It needed to be, you know, sort of blown apart a little bit, get in there with the front wheel drive, transmission, clean everything out, lube everything up again. Went over the carburetor. I really didn't even need that. I just figured, let me take it all apart, take the covers off, give it a good wash, sharpen the blade, lube the cables. You know, all of that stuff that if it gets done, it was already like 30 years old. The bag was decent. I think maybe, you know, I have like a nice vinyl. I got a big needle and a really, really big needle and some like really heavy like vinyl thread. You know, it's like vinyl rope thread. It's for fixing canvases and tarps and stuff. I'll fix a bag. You know, I'll tighten up a bag in a few spots and I'll pass the needle and thread through it and make it nice. Because when I go over to machines, I think if it's like a really worthy machine, I can get a decent price for it. I can put the machine back into service, including the bag, and somebody could get like easy another 5 years if they just didn't even do anything. 10 years, and you could possibly get another 20 years. Seriously, some of these older machines, they were made really well. And if all of those lubrication points are serviced and the machine is taken care of, maybe you'll break a pull cord. Maybe you'll get a little junk in your gas. But getting junk in your gas is a whole nother issue, as you guys may know. That's a whole nother issue. You can get water in your gas. You can get, you know, the alcohol is an issue. You can get dirt and grass in your gas by accident. That's no fault of the machine. You could break a cord over 30 years. You might, maybe, if it gets abraded or it's hanging up on something. A cable might rust. Although I've had some 30-year-old cables. You know, it's something to think about. So I'm trying, add, Rain says, yeah, he says, for my own, he says, add a single Zerk dead center each auger so lube goes in both directions. I find that, I've seen that, it still doesn't work. Put 2 in. Definitely. Try to give it, add the extra one if you're going to add it, and this way, and if you want, add 3. It can't hurt. You're drilling a little hole, and that way you can really spread it out. If it's for you, because it's a little hole, and the Zerk fittings usually they have their own little thread cutting thing on the end of it. Pop it in there. That's the only reason why I say is add more, because it tends to just find the easiest spot and it comes out someplace. That would be my thing, is that if you really want to. I don't have my Toro, and that's, I want to give a shout out to Wayne. What's his name? His son Jake over there at I can't think of. I'm like shot. My brain is killing me. You guys remember? Write it in. Performance something or other. I can't think of the name of the channel. Really good channel. Wayne suggested that we were talking about the Toro, because it's in last week's show. I put up a thumbnail, you know, get you some of this, and there's that Toro 826 there. Yeah, thank you, Illuminator. Awesome channel. So Wayne said, you know, Arch, those old barrel Toros, because I have another one. He's like, you might want to do a quick video on how they operate in the front, because I think a lot, he says, I think a lot of guys don't know what it is. There's no shear pin, okay? The reason the barrel is so big is because there's a mechanism inside. So on the scraper blade is on a like a carriage, okay? It's on like a swing, sprung loaded with a mechanism. And if, let's say, you run over like a frozen newspaper, because that happens, right? Somebody throws a newspaper in your driveway and somebody else comes home and doesn't see it, and it's wet, and then it freezes and it snows, and they're like, move the car out, and you come barreling through, and it's like a log, right? Well, something like that would get pulled in. This swing arm assembly will feel it, right? Because it's on like a hairpin thing, really. It is. Even though it's a scraper, it will feel it. And even if, like, if you hit like a brick or something and you stall it, like, you know, you go along, your scraper's low, and maybe you hit like something popped up or whatever, and you hit it, it will come back. And when it comes back, it disengages the auger, the entire auger assembly. It disengages it. The motor's still spinning, but that thing stops, and the snow stops coming out of the chute. And you're like, uh-oh. Shut everything off, go over there, look inside, and you're like, oh, what's this? Remove it, restart the machine, you're back in business. Okay? It is, but it's money, right? That's gotta cost, right? So I don't think I have that, but I have the videos. I wasn't ready to talk about this. Otherwise, I would have brought up a video or two. I have a little bit of video on it. I don't know where it is, and I got a headache now. So I'm like a girl like now. I'm like, no offense to girls. I'm sorry, Christina. And, I say dumb things, right? It's just Arch says dumb shit. Especially nowadays, because like I have something's wrong up here. So imagine, right? And Mikey set me up with what I think is going to be the parts machine. All right, I think it was like 3 video series I did last year on like fixing this old 826 that I got, and I fell in love with the damn thing, and I made it really nice. But somebody was in it and borked it, and then I borked it, and then I had to unbork it, and it's not right. It's good, it works fine, but because it's been double borked and unborked, it's not quite right. And Mike was like, I got you another machine, and the other machine probably could be a machine again, except it's a little rustier, and an RV backed into it, okay, and did things to it, like a big RV had its way. I bet you it left its mark on that RV, right? Because this thing weighs, right? It's heavy. So Wayne said you should show that in a short video and go through a demo on it. And I'm thinking, all right, I got to make some time. I want to do a will it run on this old one. I want to play around with it a little bit with a will it run because I want to make it run, right? I mean, before I take it apart, I can't help myself. Mikey made me he brought it over like last year towards the end of the year, and he was like, I'm going to hide it in the back somewhere because you have other things you need to do. Don't fool with this thing now. And I'm like, but let's go play with it. He's like, no, you have other things you got to do. So now I moved it around a little bit closer, and I think I showed some of you guys that, and I'm thinking we need to do a will it run on it. And since Wayne mentioned that, I'll go over the transmission if it works, this whole transmission / right, or auger assembly thing. And if there's anything wrong with it, then I'll bring over my machine as well and demo it on there too, because that is a functioning machine. It's in nice shape. And then I'll take apart the machine, and you can look a little bit deeper into the workings and makings of a Toro 826. There are smaller ones and there are bigger ones, and they all, in that series, they have the same mechanism. And Wayne's thing is like, you should really need to show this to these guys because they're out there and they're probably being overlooked. Now, whether or not you put one together and slap it together and try to sell it is your business, but I have a feeling that once you find one, you're going to want to keep it for yourself, like I did, because I sold the other ones. All right, I had another beast that I sold, and it was a nice beast. It was a big beast, but I sold it. I'm like, no, I have the 826 now. Right? This is the only one that stays with me. So I thought he had a great idea. Is it a solenoid that stops the auger, or it's mechanical? It's all on a spring, like a carriage, like a swing, and it does this. I got to show you guys now. I'm like, all right, I got to make time. All right, bacon break. All right, hold on. No, I'm not just gonna suck on it, right? Because I don't want to start chomping away. But I got to show you guys this. It's you got to have one, right? Like everybody has to have one of these things, Find those old machines, fellas. So TJ, I wouldn't worry about it. I have here that other machine that I showed you guys a couple of weeks ago. It is a push style Sears Craftsman. I don't think there's a transmission on it. It's a push. It's like 5.5 horsepower Tecumseh. It's got like these big wheels on it, right? Like almost like lawnmower wheels on it. I have a feeling that's the same transmission auger assembly as TJ's. So I've been keeping my eye out. I haven't said anything to him because, don't listen, TJ. In case you listen, don't listen. So I figured, well, let me see, because when I know I'm going to come across something like that at some point. If it's the same one as TJ's, and then I'm going to rip it apart and put it on the side. This way, if something happens, or if in another couple of years he wants to come back and has me install it, because if I go to service that, because he knew that was a potential issue when he brought it to me, and I was like, I don't think we really want to play with that. That's like a summer thing. Something goes wrong, because it's a good machine, right? That's the one I did the belt series on, like a high-speed belt. I know I'll come across that transmission. It's just a matter of when. And so now I know I need to take them. Okay, especially one for him. I'll just put it aside. That way, we're covered. And I'm going to start saving more of these, right? I wasn't doing that because it's not difficult work, but it just takes more time, right? And there's no money. Where I live, right, like Pate's Performance, another shout out to a cool channel. Where he lives in the area that he lives in, I don't want to say the town, but it's a nicer area. There's a little bit more money. Now, he'll complain about his customers, and they are a little bit more a pain in the neck. They really are. But there's more money there. Here, there isn't, right? He gets a lot more for his machines than I do, but he also gets a lot more aggravation. It goes to the area where you are. Like, I've also talked to some other fellows that are in other parts of the country, and when we tell them what we get for our machines, they're like, no, I don't get anything like that. I was trying to explain this to, like, Jason. I'm like, Jason, he's like, you should be getting more for your machines. I'm like, yeah, I should be, but I can't get that. I can't get what you get. It either should be, would be, could be. No, it just is it's how the crap, the wheel, when you spin it, what it lands on. There's nothing you can do about it. It is what it is. You could polish this thing to kingdom come, and it's not going to make somebody pay you more than what they think they want to because of the way they live or whatever the reasoning is. I don't know. So I grabbed a lot of footage, and I don't know how I'm going to put it together. This is one of the problems. Like, so I'm like a little bit OCD. And when I make videos, I make them the way I feel like I need to make them. I watch other people, so I learn. I watch other people making videos, so I learn. And then I learn all this stuff. And then, of course, in arch fashion, I take all that knowledge and I throw it away. And I'm like, But I watch and I learn. But then it comes down to it is that sooner or later, like, I have to make the video. So it really doesn't matter. Stealing doesn't work. Copying doesn't work. You have to be genuine and real and do it your way. And if you're a little bit OCD, you're going to wind up wanting to do a certain way. And one of the things I learned was grab the camera, take as much video as you can. If you don't take the video, you don't have the video. You don't have that to work with. Problem with this, though, is for complicated projects like this, you wind up with a lot of video. And then when you go to sit down and try to put it together in something, you have to watch yourself, which is painful enough that you guys got to watch me once. Think about how many times I got to watch me to make a video for all of us, right? So you wind up with all this video. And the other thing I learned, too, from making videos is for certain simple things, like, for example, I'm going to show you how to remove the screen on an iPhone, which is a real thing, right? There's videos out there to show you how to do it, what you need and everything, what tools you need. Lay it down, maybe have an overhead camera. You got all the tools, maybe you have an over the shoulder as well, and you sit down, you go and you do it. It's pretty straightforward. And in your mind, you're going to be the guy that now makes a video that's doing this, and maybe you could make it a little bit better or whatever. And a lot of people have said to me, why don't you do videos like that? Because I don't do videos like that most of the time. I learned is that when I go to start making a video, I say to myself, I'm going to show how to make removing the screen. And what winds up happening is this, right? Is what happened to me the past couple of days. The video is going to tell me what it wants to be. I can go into it and start shooting and thinking and scripting and all of that and try to say I'm going to make a video like this. And at the end of the day or at the end of the week, I think back and I start looking at the footage, and I've come to realize after just a few years of doing this that no, 90% of the time the damn video tells me what it's going to be, and I just got to figure out how to show that to everybody else and title it right. Because I don't get a lot of those jobs that it's like, I'm going to show you how to do a plug now. Like my friend Liz says, why don't you take one of the girls and do a video on how to do like a quick tune-up and have one of the girls just remove a plug and put a plug back in again. It sounds like a great idea. Why that never happened, I don't know. But, you know, I'll get a lawnmower and I'll be like, let's just do a plug. And then I pull the plug out and I go to spin the mower over and I'm like, the motor doesn't turn. The plug won't come out, right? Well, some of those videos I made last year of the ones with so much mung inside the engine, I had to gas wash the motor to get all the mung out because the damn thing wouldn't spin. The valves wouldn't open and close. It was, I don't know how all that mung got in. It was, the video tells me what it wants to be. I just have to learn how to interpret it. So I started taking some more footage today and I'm like trying to do some intros and stuff. And I'm like, the best I can do is guess at the intro because I really don't know until I sit down and put it together exactly, you know, is it going to be a video like this where I show you everything that I think that went wrong? Is it a video on maybe you don't want to do something like this and here's the signs to look out for? Don't even get involved. I think that's a good angle. You know, maybe I should do it like that. Everybody, don't forget anybody that's here. SuperClean, right? If you want to enter to win, we got you get a can of the foamy and you get a bottle of the regular. Just send me an email. The email is in the description link, you know, in the bottom of the video. For anybody that missed the beginning. So send me an email, subject line, put, hey, I want to enter to win. And in the body, put your address or your P.O. box, lower 48 only. And sometime in February. And once again, too, for anybody that wasn't here in the beginning that was asking me about what acids I use, the DTM Metal Prep by Kirker, I put a link in the description and scroll to when the video comes out, right? If you want to know what I said and everything and the babble that came out of my mouth, you'll see it, right? It'll be in the beginning of the video, somewhere around there. Let's see what Brad, hey Brad. This is where I live. Everyone just wants new and used. Oh, I need my glasses. Wow, I am getting really tired. Normally I could reprint like that. Used doesn't bring much, so I don't do more than clean them and change the oil. That's right. Thank you, Brad. That's right. Rain says, as a baker, yeah, Rain's a baker. The dough tells me what it needs. Just like, yeah, right? Right? Now, when I started working with my buddy and his father, right, my neighbor, and they're Italian, right, and they taught me how to mix mortar and concrete. I still suck at it, but he would tell you typically if everything is dry, this is what you would use. Now we would do in the wheelbarrow, in like a real, you know, mason wheelbarrow. Or they also taught me how to, what authors used to say was called as a guinea mix, right? Which you take out a piece of plywood, or you can do it on the dirt. And you pour in, right? And if you look at, if the sand is too wet, the mortar is going to be the mortar, right? Because it's in a bag. So if it's wet, it's garbage. But the sand could be wet, it could be dry. You got to stick a shovel in. And let's say 13 shovels go in. You start to feel, you know about how much water you want to put in. I don't even remember how to do this, but I remember doing it a lot. When you get good at it, it tells you what you need to adjust. And then you got to adjust it. If it needs a little more sand, if it needs a little bit more water, if it needs a little bit more water, right? What I used to do is mix it a little bit wet because it's easier to pull, because when you're pulling all day long, you know, it's exhausting, right? So I would mix a little bit wet and then I would dry it. Because then 90% of it was mixed. And if I saw a little bit of that film on the top, the scum on the top, I'd be like, okay, let's get rid of that. We got to get rid of it. It's a little too damp. And of course, these guys are pros, so that it better be right, because they can't lay brick if it's not right. So when you think about wherever it is that you live, what are you going to get? Some guy offered me $300 for a machine I should be getting $600 for, $500 for, because it didn't snow, and it may not. Everybody's thinking, you know what, I'll buy it for a few $100s, whether it snows or not. But I'm not paying full price, or I'm not buying it all. Maybe I can wait till next year. Now, that said, Brad, I think that might change. And I don't want to get too deep into politics tonight because it's getting late, but I think it might change. Because the economy, the way it's going, the financially speaking, the dollar, right, the way it's inflating, and then the companies having some issues with manufacturing and parts, and you're going to see more of that. You're going to see more of the dollar eroding. You're going to see more issues with companies in manufacturing. You're going to see more of parts and things. Like I know people that my ex-wife's, they're not selling any cars, brand new cars. And I know people, one guy in Alabama, he's got a truck that's been up for service for like all summer, all fall. Now we're into this year. They're missing a chip. Yeah, you have to work your local market. Because what other market you got unless you can sell this stuff online? I think if the pressure keeps up, we're going to see a crushing slump where everything just drops. And then whoever's left, when they need something like a lawnmower or whatever, they're going to, the prices of the new stuff and the availability of the new stuff is, by making things unavailable, the price goes up. It's just basic market science, right? I think that the people that are left, if you can survive, if you can pay your bills somehow and survive, what you're going to find is that these used machines are going to be more desirable. It's going to take a little while for people to kind of get this into their head because they're worried and they're busy and they got other things on their minds and they haven't broken their mindset yet of that mindset of like, is a Walmart lawnmower worth $125? Or is your $150 used machine better? Like they have to get into that mindset. And if you're talking about, let's say, $400 or $500 or $600 lawnmower, we'll just use a lawnmower for example, like a really nice Toro or something nice, and that might have been $400 a couple of years ago, and now it's like $600 or $700, right? They're not going to buy it. If you got a used Toro or something similar, a used Craftsman with a, like I have a couple of Toros here last year that the handle folded up nice and folded over. It wasn't a stow and go Toro like the new ones, but it had a lot, and the Toro, and the nice machines, okay? It had a lot of nice features, and by the time I was done, it was beautiful. And maybe it's $200, $180, right? And you look for those, and it won't sell right away. But when it sells, you're going to get $180, $150, $180, $200, right? There is a market, but you're not going to be able to sell that every day, right? There's some lawnmowers that I do here on Long Island, and when the weather really gets going, I have a really cheap lawnmower, and it's either people that don't have a lot of money, don't want to spend a lot of money, or it's somebody that's renting, and they've made a deal with the landlord to cut the lawn, or it's the landlord and he's made a deal with the renter and he's showing up. And then I've got some that are a little bit better. I've got some without bags. I've got some with bags. I've got some that I save with bags just for the end of the year because they only want one with a bag, right? So I hit all these different like aspects within the market, and I run around like a nut trying to get all these different machines sort of slapped together, and they're gone like that, like sometimes within hours. And you kind of get used to working the market that way. And then the edgers and the weed whackers, and I don't really like weed whackers, and I don't really care for two-stroke. There's a little bit of money in it, but I feel like I could spend more of my time on doing something else. And then the bigger machines and the pressure washers, which pressure washers, as you guys may know, are dicey because the pumps tend to go because people, they generally don't go if you live in an area that doesn't freeze. But if it's an area like up here, whereas this year we have not had a cold, hard freeze. Yet. We could still get one. But if you live in an area where you get at least 1 week of cold, hard freeze, and that person doesn't take care of it, that's why it's at the curb come springtime, because they broke the pump from the water freezing. So they're a little bit dicey, but sometimes, if I'm selling a lawnmower, what you could try, do what I do, where I put up, trades. I'm interested in trades, trades may be acceptable. make an offer. And just like with me and Mikey work all the time, a combination cash and trade, because I don't always have a lot of cash. Like I'm a person right now where I have assets and stuff, but I have no money because of what's going on in the economy and divorce and health issues, right? And that's why people like me are very vulnerable. But people like me, right, and people like Mikey and many of others, it might be a question of, like we might be working out a deal for my trailer that I haven't used. I want to fix it, but he wants it. And he has another trailer that is not as nice, but, my toss-up is we do a trade in cash and trailer. He gets what he needs. I get something that I can use when I'm ready to use it. But then my worry is that, well, if I want a nicer trailer, am I going to have the money when I need it? I don't know. Like, how do you figure that? But it's still an option, right? Somebody gives you a machine that you think you can put together and in the back of your head, out in your boneyard or whatever, you're like, well, I think I have every part I need for it except this, that, or the other thing. And somebody brings over a machine and you're like, oh, I think I have all the parts for that. I don't have to spend any money. Okay? You give them a little bit of a discount. People like discounts. They're going to be picking up a machine anyway. It's no big deal for them to bring their old one that's all gross and greasy and full of lawn yuck. And you make them an offer, right? $10, $20. I get it. You got to feel your area. So it's something to think about. It may be something that you wouldn't otherwise go out looking for, like an edger, a gasoline edger or something like that. Or maybe it might be a pressure washer that might be broken and you collected 3 or 4 of them that literally you wound up with for like really nothing because you only gave them a small discount but you made the sale, right? And then you wind up with a bunch of them and you're like, wow, I've got enough now to make a couple of them now. I remember one year I went through, I think it was one video I went through like 13 I had collected. I don't think I put the video together the way I really wanted, but it was something like that. So just some suggestions, fellas. You got to work your market, but you'd be surprised where you could find the money. I've met a lot of guys that do, like they sell almost anything, like anything they can get their hands on to sell, because that's what they like to do. They like to make money, and it's their side hustle. And there's nothing wrong with just cleaning up a machine and putting a tune-up on it and making it clean. And, again, you don't have to fix everything on it. If you're finding a better quality machine, one that isn't a total disaster, that is all you need to do. Most of what I do is like cleaning and the touch-up, like making it pretty. Let's see, Brad says, I agree. Brad says, oh, shop talk with Brad. What's up, Arch? What's up, Brad? He says, I agree. I sold off my John Deere collection, really, last year and ordered a new X330 before interest free. Yes. Yes. And by the way, there's the other angle, too, is that when you have inflation like this, right, it's like this lighter. However much gas is in it, right, is how much gas is in it when you buy it. But as inflation gets worse, right, it's like buying the same lighter of a different color with half the gas in it. And then inflation gets so bad that it's like buying the same lighter and now you got no gas in it. You just got the lighter. That's the problem with inflation. The same dollar to buy it, you're losing value and you're losing functionality and you're losing how much you can buy, right? Every day or every year, right, that this kind of nonsense inflation continues, you're able to buy less and less and less. And since it started, God knows, I mean, I've seen some statistics. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but you're not able to buy anywhere near as much you were able to buy like 4 years ago, even 2 years ago, even last year, right? And housing prices are going like through the roof. That's going to crash it. So we're headed for a disaster. And, in the small engine world, right, in our own little worlds or whatever, you want to try to keep, I guess, some of, your money and some of your standard of living. That's why I did that video on, like, changing over your fluorescent bulbs to LEDs. They're not that expensive right now, LEDs. The conversion process is fairly easy. If you already have the fixtures, And like with me, I got all these fixtures and the bulbs are going. If I were to buy fixtures and bulbs, it would be really pricey. If I can just get the bulbs and fix the fixtures, I get the power savings, which is energy is going to get really expensive, and already is getting that. I get the power savings and I get the savings on the fixture. And or I could just buy a fluorescent bulb, right? But then that's not super cheap, and because I have a lot of fixtures to rebulb in here, and so there's no savings there. So buy as much as you can now. This is shop. Brett says, especially with groceries, I just got charged $6 for 1 gallon of Kroger brand orange juice. What the fuck? Well, that's also in part because we had that weather issue down in Florida, right? The hurricane or whatever it was. By the way, it's been bad. We have issues with our food supply, issues with our energy supply. We've had bad weather. We've had a drought. We've had a lot of things, and around the world too. And so all of this is happening at the same time, and then the powers that be have decided to cut the energy supplies because they think that they're poisoning the atmosphere or something, whatever. Right? It's just, there's so much wrong with that. I mean, I can hit that 6 ways to Sunday. And now you're starting to hear the actual climate scientists get pissed off because they're sick of it, right? They're like getting to the point now where here, there's one right here, right? Is this the shirt? Yeah. This says something from Alabama. What does it say? Yeah, it's Orange Beach, but the University of Alabama. Okay, the climate scientist down there is getting mad. Right? He's an older guy. He's the first one that flew like 12 or 15 satellites with NASA to check on this stuff and wrote a lot of books. And he's like, they read the ICC report wrong, and they're doing it to try to make money, and they're doing it to try to manipulate people, and they got it all wrong. Anyway, you'll find out more about that as time goes on. It's ridiculous. So they're manipulating the energy grids all over the world. Cheaper energy leads to actual less consumption. In fact, you can tell, right? Because if you look in Europe, they're trying to go back to burning coal because they couldn't get the gas. They were told, Germany and other countries a bunch of years ago were told that the green thing to do was to get rid of their coal and get rid of their nuclear power and switch to Russian gas. And that was a setup, right, to collapse their economies. And because they've known for a long time that they wanted to do this with the Big Bear and what the plan was. So all of these countries said, oh, okay, we'll get rid of all our nuclear power and our coal-fired plants and everything else, and we'll go on gas, gas is good, right, because it's pretty clean. Nothing burns cleaner than gas. And for the Russians, it was easy because when they were finding more and more oil reserves, and typically what you find when you dig a hole in the ground for oil is you find water, either fresh or salt, and you find gas. And they were burning it off because that's what we used to do when we first started looking for oil. You burn off all of the natural gas, and you light these fires in these pipes, and you just let it burn because they didn't know what to do with it. You know, in the early days when Rockefeller started refining, he used to throw out gasoline because he didn't have a use for it. He'd dump it in the rivers. And just because what sold was Kero and then diesel. First Kero because that was used in the lamps and everything for lighting. And some of the early machines used it because it was an easier thing to burn than the diesels of the day because it was a bit more refined. But diesel and even bunker fuel wasn't a thing because they were burning coal. It's just crazy. They're making a mess of everything, and the people that are wealthy don't care because they can afford all this. It doesn't matter to them. So we're going to suffer until we wake up. The way around that isn't more electrical use because even California said switch over to electric. No more gasoline cars. And by the way, don't charge your electric car at certain times because we don't have the power for it. Huh? Yeah. So we need to just find ways of saving some cash and not falling into their traps. In terms of groceries, what are you going to do? Like, last year, energy prices went up through the roof. So the farmers had two problems. Because of the shortage of fuel and diesel and the and the fear of natural gas, because natural gas typically makes, it's used to make fertilizers. So the fertilizer cost went up, the diesel cost went up, and the farmers said, what the hell are we going to do? We can't afford to raise our livestock. So they took all the livestock, and they were like mile-long, rows of trucks and cattle and everything, and they killed them all and flooded the market with beef and everything. And so we had tons of beef at reasonably good prices, regardless of everything else. Come this year now, those are the cattle, a lot of those were the cattle also that were, those are the cattle that are used to make more cattle. I think what they call them. They're not, there's a certain number of cattle that are used that they bring to processing and slaughter. And then there's a certain amount of cattle that they keep, that they make new cattle with, right? Well, they got rid of all of it because we can't afford it. Well, we can't afford it. We can't get any more for our food, our meat. We're creating a glut of it, a surplus of it, so the prices fell, because when you have a lot of something, the prices fall. And we can't afford the feed, right? Yeah, breed stock. Thanks, Rain. Yeah, I'm tired, so I can't. I'm not going to even try. I can think of certain things, but other things will slip my mind. Plus diabetes. That's why I have my. I checked my blood earlier. It seemed to be okay, but I have my stuff here in case I need to check it. But I'm not going to be on that much longer. And then all the issues with the chickens, right? That's why you're seeing egg prices go up. And it's not the FDA. It's another, in this country, it's another body. But I'm speaking off the top of my head. But it's another body. They made, this is like more of a global thing. But they came up with the idea that bird flu and things like that, that the way they used to do it is that, let's say you have 1,000 birds. And the inspectors come down and they find some bird flu. And it's not a big issue, but they find some bird flu, which is common because just like people, birds get sick. And the way that they house them and everything, they tend to get worse. Yeah, big drought. Yep, that's right. The drought made it worse, right? Because now the crops, the grain wasn't growing. And even if you had fertilizer, you didn't have the rains, so we had less feed. So what they were doing with the birds is they're like, okay, you got a bunch of these birds. If we think they're sick, move them over here. And then we'll check on them. And if they're really sick, you're going to have to get rid of them. You destroy them. The way they do is they burn them. And then the rest of the flock, right, it could also be sheep and whatever. We'll keep an eye on them. But you can't, you could do what you're doing, but you can't, you can't sell them yet, right? We have to check on them, make sure they're okay. Now they decided, right, that if some of them get sick, the whole herd has to go, the whole brood, right, the whole everything. It's like wasteland, right, mentality. It's like the Chinese with their zero CVID policy. Like, that's insane, You treat the disease. You're not going to annihilate it. That's never happened before. We haven't gotten rid of a single disease. They still exist on the planet. Yes, they do. Yep. Afghan, right? The Afghanis. You know what's on a rise over there? Take a guess. Polio. It's all over the place. Mr. Gates was giving it to the ones in Somalia or whatever over in Africa. He tried this whole plan with trying to inoculate them for something different, and they all got sick. The same thing happened in India. He went over there, screwed them up. They threw him out of the country. Unfortunately, people, they don't tell you about this stuff. Like, the information's out there. It's out there, right? You're not going to hear it on the news, right? The news, it's a broken compass. What do I mean by that? It's kind of like a cross between an acronym and an initialization, right? Initialization or something. That's like with numbers. It's based upon the old cross, right? The old cross has got like a circle around it, whatever. It's a continuous thing. And it's north, south, east, and west, okay? But the news isn't. It's north, east, west, and south, right? That's a broken compass, and you can never find your way with one. I don't read newspapers, right, anymore. I don't watch the news or anything like that. I do. I catch a little bit of it, but I'm like, lie. That's a lie. That's a half truth. That's a lie. That's a half truth, right? They don't tell you the truth. And they all read off the same script because they're owned by like the same 5 corporations, which is really individuals, you know. So the way around that, right, is to stop being part of that system as best as you can and create like a parallel economy. And if that's bartering and selling your own stuff, right, however you can figure out how to do that. And this whole business kind of thing is really good with that because you can help people. They need something. You could do a really good job. You know, honest days pay. And you can also trade with them because they like to do that. I get a lot of stuff in trade. So it's something to think about. And the other thing about trade, fellas, too, is, you know, trade, cash, and trade is, think of it this way, right? Somebody is going to buy a machine, so you've got a sale. They're going to be bringing you something. You don't have to go out and find it, which means you don't have to spend your time and your gas and your wear and tear. They're doing all of that. Now, you don't have your pick of the litter, but you're not going to be doing it all the time. They're doing all of that for you, and all you have to do is receive, right? You know, a little bit of giving and a little bit of receiving, or a lot of receiving and a little bit of giving, right? You're getting rid of a machine, you're making some money on it, you're getting something else, you know, maybe part it or whatever. And it's fun. Like, there's the hobby side of it, right? There's the part that you should be enjoying it and having some fun, you know, which I think is because I get to have a lot of fun doing like a lot of this stuff. I actually enjoy it when I'm not cussing and fussing at something because it's fighting at me. Most of the time, that's not the issue. And you got to admit, like, hold on, let me shut my mouth for a minute. Let's take a quick look at, before I disappear, at the machine as it's done. Right, the green bougie machine. Because at the end of the day, right, I get to have, and somebody else is going to have this. So let me shoot over. Don't forget the SuperClean challenge. Sign up. What? The display capture A10 Mini. There we go. Now it should be coming up. Let's maximize it. And so let me just run through the pictures real fast. Does that look, that's sharp looking. Even though I don't like the barrel, the auger and all that, but it's a 7.5 horsepower overhead valve Briggs. The tires still have like little dangly things on the side. The bolts are still shiny. Let's see, this should be video. You might hear it. How come you're not hearing it again? I don't understand. See, we heard it before. There it is. I see. One's good. Oh, yeah, good. I need a different camera for this. I gotta get the one. Zippo just got the new. What the hell is it called? See, I can't think tonight. Shit. There we go. Yeah, is this one? Is this it? Yeah. Did I take the other part? Oh, I guess I didn't take that part. I know, right? It's a $750 machine, but in the right market, but not now. So we'll kill display capture. Now, all right, so we hear, all right, we're coming into February. February and March on Long Island, it could be a winter, right? I'm hearing reports from my buddy who listens to a fellow, I forget his name. He's down in Carolina, right? North Carolina. Joey B is the meteorologist, and he's very good. and they're talking about snow down there on Friday, this coming Friday. And usually Joey is like, he's good. And I get a lot of his weather. Now, I can also get it from up the coast and get a nor'easter. And it depends upon the jet stream from you guys in Canada, right? Brett says, beautiful machine, Arch. I'll have to put my old relic on my... Yes, please do. Mid-70s Craftsman, 7 horsepower, 24-inch Tecumseh powered snowblower. Yeah, put that up. Put it up like before the end of this coming month for sure, because it's still that season. And even if you just do like a will it run and a walkthrough, do a quickie is another thing you can do. Do a short, right? Grab your camera. I'm going to start doing more of those. You know, just grab the phone, do a short, let people know what you're up to, then maybe do something a little bit more, a will it run or something like that. A tour. Well, I think it was last week, one of the fellas on here, I forget who it was, he made mention of some older machine that I never heard. I didn't know what it was. And about 5 minutes or 10 minutes later, I searched it on Google and we brought it up, and I just picked like the first video I saw, and we all watched together. Some dude that did a walk around on this old machine, snowblower. And that was the first time I ever saw one of those. And it was nice to be able to do that. That's why I like this setup here, the way I have it set up, so I can do stuff like that. Now, Zippo suggested that I use a StreamYard. Yeah, was it the Wilson? I think it was. Was it you, Brad, that said that? Because I'm not going to remember. But StreamYard is kind of neat. He suggested StreamYard, and I looked into that. The Gilson, yes, yeah, I think that's what it was. And StreamYard is pretty good. I know some of the fellas that do that. I just don't want to do, they do like an all up with a whole bunch of people up at the same time, and they already do that, so I don't want to repeat that. And they're going to be better at it than I am anyway. But I'm looking for something that I could bring up a guest, and I think I can integrate StreamYard into what I'm doing, because this way, if I want to bring somebody up as a guest, all they have to do is have some type of a camera that's connected to a computer or their phone or something. They click on the link, and then it brings them into like a basement area where I can see it, and then once I learn how to do it, I can then bring them up and integrate it into what I'm doing so it doesn't interrupt my workflow. Because generally speaking, YouTubers or people that live stream, they don't use StreamYard. They might use it as something to bring up other people, but they also use Zoom, they use Skype, they also buy other programs. When they get popular and they can afford it, they buy programs that do stuff like this. One of the benefits of something like StreamYard is that, like what I'm doing right now, everything is done locally here. All the compression and rendering and all the horsepower is here. And then I push it through my modem and out, right? Through my network and out. And there's very little lag. But then my processor has to handle everything, and my switcher, right? So you got the switcher, which handles a lot of the audio. Okay. So I can tweak my audio. It has a mixer built in. I could do things that I wouldn't normally be able to do, like with just StreamYard or through just this. So this software is pretty powerful. So I can integrate other programs and other systems, cameras, whatever, into this software, and then put it together and then push it out. StreamYard has one advantage, well, two advantages. One, for somebody that wants to join my show, it's a link that they click on, and all they need is a mic, preferably a headset, but they don't have to have that. It just eliminates any possibility of any kind of feedback. And that's it. Okay, they click on the link, and if they have just their phone, right, it has the camera built in and the microphone, and they can see, themselves and everybody else, and they could be part of the show. And that's nice. The problem with it is there's going to be a delay. For sure. There'll be a considerable delay. So when I look at them and I ask them something, I know to wait, and then I know I'm going to have to wait for the response. When you have a whole bunch of people up, sometimes what you see is they're all talking on top of each other because all this delay adds up. And if you're not used to it, you don't know how long to wait. Like, you get used to it after a while, and it's automatic. The other advantage of doing that is everything goes up to a cloud server, and then it's processed there and not locally. But you don't have as much control unless you buy software. And then because any free software, they're gonna wipe out any of the cool functionality. We all know that. Like, you're not gonna get all the neat functionality. It's crippleware. They cripple it. So I got to see how I want to do that, because I would definitely like to bring up like a special guest or something and talk about something cool and have something to bounce off of. I don't want to do a Hollywood Squares where I got like 5 or 10 people up and there's really no direction and it can go. That's already being done. Most of the guys do that. So, and they're going to do it better than me because they've been doing it longer. So I don't want to copy that. And if I want to do something like that, I'll just get on their show. If they let me on. All right. I remember I tried to get on Mick's show. Mick, are you listening? All right. Mick Smo is another cool chap. He's over there across the pond. I tried to get into his show one time. And then what would happen is I would start to come up and he'd hit a button and push me back into the basement. And I'd be waiting there and I'd be waiting there. And then somebody would like leave the show for a minute to go to the bathroom or something. And I'd be like, oh, good. It would start to bring me up, right? And then he'd hit a button and I'd go back into the basement. And that dude would be gone for a while. And he'd come back and he'd be like, yeah, he's coming back. I don't want Arch yet. Yeah, Mick, I knew what was going on. I know what you were doing that day, okay? Shame on you, right? He's supportive, though. He's supportive of my channel. He is. He's just, for whatever reason, like he didn't want old Arch up on there freaking out, you know. So I remember what happened. If he sees this, if he's watching it now, he's probably laughing. But there's some advantages to that, but there's some disadvantages. You know. But definitely, like, I would like to have Zippo on to talk about the oil thing, right? Because there's some stuff that he says I completely agree with, and there's a couple of things that I want to pick apart, because not that I think he's wrong, but I think it's a good opportunity to pick apart certain things. And as he said when he wrote me, I got to write him back, but he says it is a heated subject and all those keyboard warriors out there. I'm like, yeah, that's true. It is sort of a subject that a lot of people debate. But it's still a good subject, and to talk about oil and what oil you might want to use. He likes Rotella, and he likes CDTP or, zinc additives or whatever, but that's not necessary for every engine. Also, he has a lot of machines that are his personal cache, and then he sometimes will put something together for somebody and sell it or whatever he does. Whereas I'm cranking out machines one after the other. I just want to make sure a good oil is in there and whatever's the cheapest oil. Because so many of the people that I know, like my customers and everything, they don't care. Like, they just, is it going to work? The question that I get asked the most when I wheel out a lawnmower and it's beautiful, and they say it's nice and they feel like I did a good job. They don't question that, but the question is, how long do you think this will last? So, I think that's it's 2 a.m. Yeah. Well, sometimes he's up on a weekend or whatever. Sometimes he doesn't sleep or whatever. I've been up late too. I've checked out shows and stuff or whatever. And I used to watch him. I caught Ken over at Ken Small Engines. I was sitting before this show. He had like a 2-hour show, and I got I saw the show late because I was busy. Was working, then I wanted to eat, and I was cleaning up in here, and I was like, oh, I should do a show tonight. And so I caught it, so I was just sort of sitting in the background, poking at it and listening for a little while. He does his show. I think he was doing a Conquer fill-in, which is at a specific time. But his shows, when he does them, either he'll do it like in the morning, and he used to take us over to the restaurant or whatever, and he'd be eating in front of the camera, and we're watching him eating, right? It was fun to make fun of him. But he does it whenever he has time, when he feels like it. You know, he enjoys it. It's fun. He's a very good mechanic. And he's an engineer, too, and you can tell because of the way he is. He has that brain that they, like, remember part numbers and sizes, and it's really weird. It's like a walking dictionary atlas. He's a good mechanic, but he's also that way, you know. I'm not like that. I'm the conceptualizer. I have like the 20, 30,000 foot view on everything. And the only time I care about particulars is in that moment. Like, I don't remember half the time, like, what valve lash on a particular... You think I would know, but there are some differences, so I don't care. First thing I do is I do a standard lash check, and then if I think there's something wrong, I have these quick reference guides. I just weed through them real quick. You know, I don't have to remember. You know, when I first started working for Grumman Aerospace, we didn't have computers like we have now, not like this kind of access. So they had a library of books. They were called MEPS, Methods, Engineering, and Practices. And in these books, in these libraries of books, from A to Z, was everything you needed to know somewhere in there. And depending upon what you were working on, there was a spec sheet and a description of what you were supposed to do, what was required, what the specifications were, and what the outcome should be with drawings in a short form. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm good to go, right? I read blueprints. I can make blueprints I used to make them on AutoCAD. I get spec sheets. I was trained in all of that. I went to school for a little while and that. I'm like, I don't have to remember now. I can find the exact detailed information. So when it comes to books and things, I'm that kind of a person. Why should I remember it? I can just go find it. It's like they used to ask Einstein all the time. They would tease him, like, what was his phone number? He's like, I don't know my phone number. He's like, I never call it, but I know where to find it. You know, in those days, it was in the you know, the white, in the yellow, well, it was the white pages, right? Like the yellow pages was for, like, businesses and stuff. Can you guys remember that? When's the last time? The phone books were for, like, you put it on the chair and so that the kids could sit a little higher. I'm trying not to smoke, so I'm smoking these clips. So I'm, like, smoking, like, the same cigarette, and then I put it out. Oh, that way I'm like, oh, I just smoked 2 cigarettes all night. It's the same 2. So, yeah, the longevity of, yeah, and that's a good question, right? I think that if it doesn't burn oil, if the motor doesn't burn oil, and if there isn't a lot of gook in the oil, and that's something that Zippo brought up too. You know, if you have a so-called detergent or something in there, do you really want to get the junk out? There are times when you want to get the junk out, and there are times you don't want to touch the junk. So if it's not a really dirty engine, and it doesn't burn oil, and the rest of the machine is in good shape, I feel comfortable with saying things like what I'll say is, first I'll say is, it will last longer than you'll want it. Think about that. And I see the look on their faces, and I wait. And then I might say, at least 5 years. It depends. If you hit something, you're going to break it. If you don't take care of it, if you dump some puke into the gas tank, all bets are off. Right? But if you break a cord, so what? If you break a cable, so what? Bring it back. I'll fix it. I give good prices. Even if you run over something and you totally bork the engine, right? I have parts here. I got tons of them. I'll work something out with you. Keep it in good shape. if you can, as best as you can. Clean it once in a while. I give them a little one. If they want to listen, I go through a spiel and I give them tips on how to take care of it and how to turn it over, right? Don't always turn it over towards the muffler. Don't turn it over to the, carburetor side. Here's why. Safety. Pull the plug. If ever you turn it over and you want to fool with the blade or something, take the wire off, or even better, take the plug out. Look, that might be overkill, but we're talking safety, right? Somebody doesn't know. Wear gloves. Don't touch some of this stuff. It's rusty. It could be sharp, or worse, dull. Here's where you can spray oil. Here's what to look out for, what to avoid, and then I send them on their way. And most of my customers are actually really cool people. There's probably 90-something% of them. I wind up hanging out with them for a little while and chatting. So, I want, one of the goals that I have for the way I do machines is that make it, get it back to the way it was as best as you can. It doesn't have to be mint and super perfect, but if it was a good machine to begin with, try to get it as close to that as possible, right? The second thing is that if you could get it to that point and you can still make money, you want it at the point where when something breaks, is the machine still worthy of fixing? Because it's not if something breaks. I think of it more as when something breaks, when a cable breaks, when your blade gets really beat, or you hit something and the motor's still okay. You're going to need some service. When you puke the carburetor and gas tank up with something because of where we live, where you made a mistake, and you bring it back, is it worth a year or two from now doing a tune-up and fixing what's wrong with it? And I want the answer to that question to be yes. Because that's how you get to 5-10 years, or longer than you'll want it. Maybe things get better a couple of years from now, and you decide you want that new lawnmower for $400, $500, $600. You want that super sweet one, or maybe it's the property isn't that big and you want to spend the money and get an electric one, but you want a nice one. My friend Steven bought a nice electric lawnmower. And I sold his. He gave me his, and I fixed it up, and it's on the channel. It came out really nice. And Christy bought it. The one where Christy, my customer Christy got water in her fuel after she bought the machine, and at the end of the season, finally, it gave up, and we fixed it, and you see her kids wave goodbye. Right? It was worth fixing. I didn't charge her much to get all the junk out. And when Steven saw that machine after I was done with it, he's like, I guess I shouldn't have given it to you. I should have had you fix it. But he's been working on his property since he bought the place. And when it broke a bunch of years ago, there was a guy across the street, a lawn guy across the street, and he asked him if he could cut his property because, the property was shrinking. He was doing work around it and decks and whatever. So in a sense, the property was getting smaller. And the guy said, yeah, $20. I'll cut your lawn for $20 every week. Well, a bunch of years went by, it wasn't $20 anymore. Now suddenly, I don't know, it was 60 or whatever, 70, 80, whatever it was. He's like, I'm not spending that. I'm just going to buy an electric. Because now he had the property sort of trimmed out. He had the pool, he had the deck, he had the bushes, he had the fence, and now it was like an electric was perfect. Let's see. Brett says, I always give people a rundown of the do's and don'ts whenever I repair or sell a machine. I think that's a really good practice. I think that's what sets us different than the shop. Maybe the shop, I have a shop around the corner from me. It's not a lawnmower shop. It's a rental place that sells machines, including lawnmowers and stuff, and does service and repair. Okay, so you can rent your backhoe, you can rent your trailer, you can rent some earth equipment, bangers, tampers, whatever, rollers, edgers. They have a parts counter. They have a little showroom, which nobody ever goes in, so he turns the lights off because he doesn't really sell things that way. Yeah, chippers, right? And by the way, chippers are like a universal. If there's trees, there's chippers. I have one. Yeah, and Brett, if most people don't care, but you've planted a seed. And let's say, for example, the guy that you did that with, first of all, I go through a spiel. I tell everybody that I'm going to give you what we call a spiel. I'm a New Yorker, so we're around, like I said, ethnicities, right? Like, you learn all these words. I don't change my spiel. It's an honest spiel, and it's one that works. I also don't change my routine when I go through a machine. It's the same routine for everyone, because if I change it too much, I'm going to miss something, and then I'm screwed, or something stupid happens in front of the customer, because that's happened to me. I would think it would happen to everybody. So I've developed those practices, again, methods, engineering and practices, my MEPS. I go through all of that, I give the spiel. The person maybe cares, maybe doesn't care. They go home and they start cutting their lawn, and the neighbor or the family comes over and looks at this and goes, "Oh, where'd you get that nice machine?" "Oh, some guy over at Archer's Garage. He told me all this stuff, and he seems like he's okay." "Really? Well, let me have his number. Where is he?" I've gotten a lot of customers that way. And the guy that asked about it from his neighbor, right, asking about me, he's the guy that cares. And he got the info from the guy that doesn't care, or girl, because I sell them to women too. And because you care, somebody's going to care, right? But you keep trying, and don't sell yourself out, right? Keep your character high and your integrity high and your desire to want to do the right thing. And I got really mad. I had a customer try to rip me off. And I told him, shame on you, really. You have no idea who you just pissed off. Get the fuck out of here and never let me see you here again, right? Don't ever let me. I got really mad. I was like, really, shame on you. You must be one of those people that feels like they're a freaking victim, because you've been victimized, so now you're going to go and victimize somebody. I'm like, you just screwed yourself, because you'll never get anything out of me, and I'm probably the best person around here that does this. It would be fair to say that I am. And so you just lost that asset. I didn't lose anything. All right, you annoyed me. I just lost my cool, but shame on you. And I sent them packing. So, yeah, don't compromise. And like I say, it's about 1%. There's always a percentage, no matter what you do or who you work for or what job you're in. You're going to come across somebody that's an ass. Doesn't mean you have to be one. Don't compromise yourself, right? It doesn't matter if you think it's just a lawnmower. What's the difference? It's not just a lawnmower. It's your integrity. Yeah, George, yeah, right? It's like, yeah, oh yeah. When I get mad, it's not pretty. I don't make a big fuss of it, but we've all had people that have tried to screw us, right? And everybody knows. And I said to him, I said, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but I actually returned your phone call. That's the first sign that you didn't get. I returned your phone call right away, and I had it back to you within 2 days. Who the fuck would do that? Especially if they were trying to screw you. So there's something wrong with you that you couldn't see that you're still acting the way you're acting. Like a child. An angry, pissed off child. Nah. Oh, I love it. I just love it. And I don't really tell people to go F themselves. I use these other words that come out when I get like that, and I say things like that. And yeah, Karens and Brandons and Lindas. Linda, did you guys ever see that one? Linda, listen, that little kid, and he's arguing with his mom, and he's going, but Linda, listen, Linda. I love New Yorkers. No, it's like this. It's like, yeah, New York. I can't even see my keyboard. It's Yorkers. I know. I'm gonna start putting like little things up, because I hear myself when I'm editing, and I'm gonna start putting up like the correct spelling, like the way the way I say it, I'm going to spell it like that. Because I can hear myself, and I'm like, I can't believe I just said it like that. Yeah. So that was fun. And like I said, I really didn't want to get involved with taking all of that apart. And I was thinking just throw that whole red barrel on the back end of that green, the green tractor section. And I thought about that and I'm like, that's cheesy. I shouldn't do that. Because this thing's not right. That one auger is stuck on there. And I don't want to make a machine like that. It was better what I wound up doing. And then it became a video, and I'm thinking, ooh, right? This really is a problem. I usually avoid this problem, but somebody else needs to know, or maybe wants to know, to not do this. It's not mung, it's schmutz. Yes, I know schmutz. You guys know, who else here knows schmutz? Right? The word schmutz. You got schmutz on it. What's all this schmutz on this? What is this? Where does that word come from? Like, where is it? It's this, yeah, Frankenblower. Yes, it would be a Frankenblower at that point. But I was going to paint it. Now, I still have that barrel, and I'm like, the problem with the barrel is, like, I could paint it, I could make it really nice. I'd have to put all the guts in it. But if you were going to take a barrel apart to paint it and make it mint, you'd have to do that anyway. Is it Yiddish? I would think so, especially up here. Oh, yeah. My friend Steven's grandmother, right, she was Yiddish, and she used to say things like, poor people can't afford to buy cheap things. Think about that, right? There's wisdom in that, right? So some of these people that came over years ago, like after the war, right, they didn't have anything. And as they worked really, really hard, let's say Mama wanted to buy some furniture. They wouldn't buy like anything. If maybe somebody would give them something or whatever, and they would use that. And then they would save their money, and when it was time and they had enough money, they bought a nice couch, or a nice one, and some matching love seat or something, Yes and no, Brett. Like, you could powder coat it. He says you should powder coat it, but you don't have to. If you paint it properly, it'll be fine. The old ones weren't powder coated. They were painted. And they're still around. Look at the old Aryans and stuff. Most of those were painted. I mean, I have a lot of tools that are painted. A lot of tools and machines and stuff, and they're around. They're still doing their thing. I know what you're saying because you're thinking the environment they're in, but the snow is just wet. And the salt, if there's no exposed metal, the salt can't do anything, but nobody rinses the salt off. At the end of the season, right, before you put your snowblower away, you should rinse it, give it a good wash, soap it down, run it out of fuel, all of the good stuff, right, the simple stuff, and then shove it in your shed or put a cover over it, right? Yes, it is. I think Mick just, he put a video out a couple of weeks back that he got a little powder coating set up, and he wants to make like a rig somewhere, either in his shed or just, I think he said just outside of the shed, like to make a little like cabinet. I had thought about doing that for the longest time. I want to see, I'm waiting for because I haven't checked out his channel since that video. So I'm waiting for him to do something like that. He'll do it. He'll find some, because he actually likes to repaint a lot of these lawnmowers, right? I've seen him do it. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but he'll use, and another problem he's having is he can't get the paint stripper that he likes. I guess there's some, again, more restrictions. So for whatever reason, I forget what it was that he said, that he can't get it, so he's looking for an alternative. Because what he'll do is, he goes even further than I do. If he wants to repaint the machine, he strips it. But a lot of his are aluminum. But he'll strip it all the way down, and then he'll build up, with the primer and the paint, and they come out really nice, and he's removed all of the old gross stuff. So there's no blending or like I do and spot putty or anything to cover over little horrors. He just starts fresh. I think he's thinking of smaller parts and bracketry and things like that. Because I was thinking about it. I'm like, well, I have the room, but I don't have the... Brad says, I have an old 504 Arians. Great machine. Yeah, let's see what that looks like. Hold on. Let's take a look. Arians 504. Let's see. We'll bring it over here so we could all see. Let's see here. Let's move you off. Move you back. So, is that an Arians snowblower? Arians... Yeah, Soda Blast. I know, right? Let's see. Can I find one? This is a newer one. I want to see an old one. Oh my God, it's like $1,500. Let's see videos. Stage. Yeah, an ST. Is it an ST 504? Yeah, I showed you the one that I have, right? I showed you the one that I have, an old Arians. Is it still here? I don't know if it is. Hold on. One thing at a time, Arch. All right. I don't know if it is here. I don't remember what I did with it. Did I leave it? Let me just see real quick. I think it was the end of the year. Right? Yeah, it was the end of the year. Here it is. Stand by. All right, we're going to check out a couple of Arians. So since I have mine up, and then we're going to go look at the other one. Let's see. Display capture. Yeah, this is it. And I saw it in the shed the other day when I was in there. And I'm like, ooh. I think this is it. Yeah, this is it. All right, that's the next one. That one we're going to get to. That one is just going to be a quickie. There it is.
All right, next up on today's extravaganza, last minute cleaning. So,
it's a little
look at
guy.
this thing. Who is it? I don't know.
I don't know what the model is.
Can't read it.
It says Arians.
Arians, maybe? Might be.
The glare,
look at this
I
thing.
can't see
It's
what's
awesome.
left.
Right? Look at how cool this is. I think Mikey set me up with this one. Thanks, Mike. Right? Looks like, is that a Briggs?
Nope, it's a
or a
Kami.
Kami. I don't know. We'll get closer. What do you see? Anything in here? That tank is like clean as I can see it so far. There's nothing in it. You're not going to be able to see it. How about, right, I remember these Arians did this. Yeah, you had to lean over, and there was no safety. I remember I killed my neighbor's fence, and he got real mad at me because it started climbing up his chain link fence. You have to reach over and disengage. Look at this, right? This gearbox. First of all, everything in here feels tight. I checked it before. That's cast. That's cast iron. Right? Look at that. Let's get that cleaned out.
Takumish.
Let me pull off
cast
the back
iron.
the bottom cover. And maybe we'll pull off the belt cover.
On.
And then
all right, so I will bet you dollars to donuts. Let me see. Get a little bit better look. That has oil in it. Okay? Look at it. It's cast iron. It's got the standard bung over here that you see at the bottom for that little nipple. And you peel that out. You turn the machine upright. Dump the oil in the transmission. Put it back normal on all fours, and then put oil in it until it just starts to weep out of that hole, and put the plug back. And that transmission will last forever that way. So that's why I say.
First of all, everything in here feels tight. I checked it before. That's cast. That's cast iron. Right? Look at that. Let's get that cleaned out. Let me pull off the bottom cover. And maybe we'll pull off the belt cover. And then I'll bring it over on the clean line. Get it, rinsed off. Yeah, Arians. It's an Arians. Get it rinsed off. Put a little SuperClean on it. and then we'll bring it in, and it won't be today, it'll be some other day, but this is nice. I'm like, how do you not want this? Like, who's going to tell me, I don't want that arch, right? It's old, throw it out. No, there's not, it doesn't even look like there's any wear on those skids. Look, that's an original skid. How's this one? I'm not throwing it out. Right, might be useful to, like, you know, kick around. Right, it doesn't even have air in the tires. Look, it doesn't. It's tires that don't need to breathe. There's no wind in them. Right, these are like solid.
There's no wind in them.
This might be nice for like a cleanup, like after you've already, you know, snow blowed and done all that, and like the wind, and it snows a little bit more, and like the next day you come out and like, I'm not gonna pull out my gigantic 826 to just tidy up. This is a nice little broom, right? It's a 2-stage broom. Plus, it's cool. It's prestige, right? It's you know, look at the way it's made. Look at the handle on this thing. It's like structural girder design. I mean, this is how you make stuff, right? We got to fix this, guys. A guy has just got to appreciate some things. I can tell you the carburetor is probably no good because I reached up underneath there and it's got a mixture jet. You know, main mixture jet adjustment, and it feels like it's locked. Okay, all right, let's play. All right, I'll be back.
Yes, yeah, Brett. It is a tank, and because of the points, it would have to be like 70s. You know, look at the transmission on this.
I know the lighting's not going to be great, but look at the joy in here. Look at this thing is so over-engineered. What is that? That's one of them cricket things. Oh, it's so... Look at the size of this cricket thing. It's called a spigot. Let me get it out. It might be still alive. Cricket. It might just be sleeping upside down.
Yeah, sleeping.
You know? Let me get that out. I want to show you that. That's nasty. I'm not touching it with my fingers. It just
look at this transmission.
Let's get this thing clean out. That's why I want the critters out of here.
It's complete overkill. Like, you're not breaking that.
All right, I'll be back.
This is one of these machines. Look at this in beautiful shape, this thing. It really is. The paint is rough and all. You know, look at this gearbox. Even the rubber on that friction wheel is still... Even the friction wheel, which is probably steel. All of that. What I did, I put it in the shed. And what I did is I washed it off that day and I let it dry in the garage. And I needed room, so I'm like, okay, we're going to move some stuff that I'm not going to be touching into my shed. That's for my stuff. And then, you know, the garage, is some things are moving around and everything, and I needed room. So like, okay, we're going to move this. Before I move it, get out the oil gun, and I just hosed anything that moved with oil, right? Just everything with oil. And I brought it in, and then I went in there the other day, so it's been sitting in the shed for a while, and I was like, okay, let's check it out. Well, there was oil on the ground, and I just put some Dryzol. It's
desiccated. Look at this thing. It's like Alien too.
So it's
like
lubricated
it's back.
for now.
It's like from Alien, the movie.
And I got some stuff to move
this is
again that was stuck.
My favorite ones are the dead ones. This is the crap that they want you to eat now, right? Seriously, you know, if you hear about eating bugs and crickets, yeah, that's what the WEF wants you to do. It's a spider cricket, and it's an invasive species, and I hate them. They would never hear before. All right, let me hose, and then we'll get SuperClean out.
Let's see. Might as well go through the whole thing. That's the SuperClean bath.
All right, the arsenal. I'm mixing a little bit of the all-wheel cleaner from SuperClean, which is an acid
in it.
You know, it gets rid of brake dust.
This is another reason, by the way, why I want to get more of that acid that I was talking about. Because if you put the acid on,
but it's I'll dry there.
It will.
All right, we're almost done.
Remove that rustiness that you see,
to get
then
the gack off.
You put a clear coat on it.
It's been cleaned,
right? Like you said earlier.
Now I put some of that acid mixture on, and I was scrubbing it. Scrub-a-dub-dub. And with some Scotch-Brite and the acid, and then just spraying a little bit on and rubbing it in. The problem is the heater reaction. At some point, these chemicals don't work, right? It's after 3. It's getting cold again. I got to get out of here. I got to clean up. I got to put everything away. It's going to be pouring rain, and things will freeze.
You think it's an HSK 50?
So it's diminishing returns at some point. But you could see the difference, right? Little Arians she's starting to look real good. So I'll let that acid sit. I'll give it another 20 minutes or so.
We gotta do this.
Rinse it off. Let it drip dry a little bit. Finish cleaning up. Put everything away and get everything in by 4 because it'll be dark and freezing. All right, I'll see you guys in a bit.
Yeah, it started to like, you can almost see it on the can, right? You can almost see the water glazing, right? That's happened to me a lot. It seems like it's nice out.
I don't know if you can see that, but it may not focus.
It
Point
should be a 5.
20 thousandths. Right, Arian's company.
The point cap.
Brilliant, Wisconsin, USA. Manufactured by Tecumseh Products Company. So this is Takumi motor, like I figured. I have other Takumi motors. I even have one with points on it. So you could even put one without points on it if you wanted to. They think they fit. Yeah, look at the little belts in there. Right, I didn't want to be too harsh on the belts because I need them for sizing. If we can get them, right? We may have to, I don't know. What is this? Is this a motor with another shaft? Oh yeah, it's got a little tickly shaft up top there. Oh boy. All right, well, we'll find out.
Yeah, we got to get belts.
I don't see a date on it though. No date yet. We'll get something off of, probably off the motor.
Yeah, one of the tag might be.
But you got to know, right? It's got to be 70s, 60s or 70s because of points and Takumi. So definitely, I want to say maybe mid to early 70s.
All right, now let's look at, I want to see, so an Arian's 504, right? Isn't that thing nice? All right, I got to fix that. How could I not fix that? So here's a ST504, and it's an AT504. I don't know what the differences are. That looks like a newer one.
How's it going, everybody? This is Double Wide 6.
Oh, it's double wide.
And today I'm bringing you a little video on this
Let's just take a quick look at double wide.
ST504 snowblower that I just picked up. I got it for $80, and it's around August, so I'm planning on keeping it till the snow season. It needs a little bit of work. First of all, you can see they sprayed some primer on it. It looks a little rough. Engine-wise, it starts right up. It doesn't have the electric start. I think the ST504E is the one with the electric start. It has 4 speeds here, 1 through 4, and reverse. So that means that it's self-propelled, has pneumatic tires, which are in decent shape. I'm not sure of the age, probably about 15 years old, maybe a little older than that. Whoever had this thing did service it. There's all new fuel lines on it, a new fuel shut off, the carburetor's been cleaned, and there's a new spark plug, there's fresh oil in it. So when I bought it, it started right up, runs fine, and it still starts right up and runs fine. There's also a new primer on here, and there's also a new primer line. So pretty much everything mechanically has been taken care of, and it just needs a little work on the paint, so I'm going to be doing some painting. If we take a look at the auger, I did notice a problem right when I bought it. Underneath the auger crankcase down here, you can see that there is a very light leak and some sort of liquid oil coming out of there. I'm not exactly sure what oil goes in there. I'm going to have to figure that out. And it seems to be leaking out the seal here, so it needs some new oil seals on each side. So that's going to be a repair that I'll bring you in the future as soon as I order those parts. I also noticed that one of the shear pins is not a shear pin, so on this side it's just a bolt, so I need to put a shear pin in there. The other side, the shear pin is good. So I think our goal is going to be, we're going to pressure wash the machine just to clean off some of the dirt and grime. We're then gonna do a little bit of touch-up paint, some orange spray paint, and a little sanding before we paint, and we'll replace those seals. And I think pretty much the machine should be ready to go, and I plan on selling it in the winter. Seems to be a pretty good machine. I had it started yesterday, obviously, when I bought it, so I'll show you how it starts today.
All right, good.
And this is a cold start. Choke. Prime. There's a key.
Oh, Brad's on the road.
Turn that on.
Looks like it's built well.
So as you can see, it starts real nice, runs nice, and no real hesitations with it. So we're just going to clean it up, fix those oil seals, and we'll show you the process.
Wow, that was
So
2012.
thanks for watching, and it's an Aaron's ST504, and I'm double wide 6. So please subscribe, and you'll see the upcoming videos. Take care.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, huh? Wow, that was like close to when he first started. Let's see. I just want to check this one out. So that an ST504. I guess this is him working on it. I just want to see this one real quick. Here we go. Getting down. Got a real metal chute. Yeah, he's working it. It doesn't have the weight for that much snow. I mean, it does it. The engine's not quite big enough. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. What I noticed... Hold on. What I noticed is, we'll do display capture. Two things I noticed right away. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Brett. What I noticed was I had bought a new Craftsman, you know, when they were still here around the corner, and I've mentioned this a few times on some of the other videos. 5 horsepower, new Craftsman, not made as well as this, right? It was started to get into the point where, like, the plastic chute and the thinner metal, but a 5.5 horsepower Takumi. Lighter weight. Two things I noticed. When we get this weird snow and it starts to get heavy or it starts to get packed, the weight of the machine isn't enough. The tires was kind of small, right? Similar. It's like similar in ways to that green one that I have. So the weight isn't enough. The machine can't sit into the snow. It can't get good traction, even if you put chains on it. It has a little bit more of an issue, especially with like that heavy underpack. And the other thing is the motor doesn't have enough horsepower. It'll get the job done, but you'll hear it labor. And so that's for a newer machine. And the other thing I noticed is that the governor spring, buy a new one. If you're having a problem where it feels like it's laboring, and it's like a 5 horsepower, maybe even an 8. And it's like kind of laboring, and it seems like it's not really responding. Get a new spring. It's the spring, right? Even if you move the spring, you can try moving it to get a bit more tension on it. Probably the best thing to do is just get another spring. I have a bunch of them here, but this has happened to me. I went to go sell one, and it had a similar issue. And I was trying to sell it, and the guy went and tested it, and he was like, it's just not enough. And I said, you know what? Give me a minute. Let me try something. Because I had the thing tuned up. It seemed like it was okay. I'm like, it shouldn't be doing that. And like, just give me a few minutes. And I went and I got another spring, and I put another spring on the governor. And it was much better. It still was a 5.5. And what the snow that was here on the corner where he was testing it was like hard pack, and that was kind of a lot for it compared to like an 8 horsepower of anybody's brand, or 7 or 8 Briggs & Tecumseh or whatever. But I've seen this, right, on the older engine. It's been around. I don't know, maybe the heat, I don't know, the spring just gets tired, so replace it. But yeah, you can just do, well, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Like I mentioned for that, Brad, that little Arians that I have, like a cleanup machine, you know. Yeah, easy and cheap, and you can buy like 2. You know, buy a couple of them, be cheap. If you happen to have a machine, buy one for yourself, and if you're doing what we are doing, and you might come across it, have another one around and sell it like that. Unfortunately, the problem is that where I am, we don't get enough snow. And like this year, we didn't get any snow. And there's nothing laying around to even test a machine with. Like if there's something laying around, I can go out in the yard and go find a spot. There's plenty of room back there. And I can go test the machine that I'm working on before I sell it. I can't even do that right now. I can't do it. So cheap, easy. If the customer complains, you have an answer, and it's cheap. You just do it, and bring it back. I'll do it for you. Don't even charge. You know, you want to keep people happy as best as you can. So yeah, it could have been, Brad. It could have just been completely out of adjustment. You know, even things like a carburetor is weird. Like the Tecumseh carburetors, what I've noticed with them is they will run the engine, but they won't run it properly. And then you go and you get another carburetor and you put it on, and the problem goes away. They just can't respond. Like they'll kind of make the engine run. It seems like it might be okay without a load, and you can kind of tell something doesn't feel right, and then you put it on the load and it doesn't want to respond. The passages are really small, and like you can't get into everything. And another thing too is a lot of them, the older ones with the brass emulsion tubes, I don't think you can get those out. I can't get them out without destroying them. So all you can do is clean them in place. Somewhere down the line they changed to the plastic versions, and they come in colors for different sizes. You know, you can't drill them out, so you have to get a different size. And they're removable, but they leak, and they break, and they get brittle. So you have that issue. And so you might as well just get like an aftermarket carburetor. And you can get a pretty decent one too. And you can get a new in the box carburetor. They're about $70 for a Tecumseh carburetor, an actual Tecumseh carburetor. So yeah, they're pressed in. Yeah, that's what I figured. Because they'd have to be, right? It's brass. And it's probably like a light press fit. And of course, it's pressed in from the bottom up, right? Pressed in, pressed down. And with all that interference fit and then the age, right? You ain't getting that out. So the best you can do is, you know, run a rod through it, run some cleaner through it. I don't have one of those vibrator cleaners, right? The sonic cleaners. I don't have one. I need to get one. But again, it's money. I don't have the money for it. But even that, people tell me, my rule of thumb is I'm always willing to rebuild the carburetor once. And then if I think it needs tuning and I can get in there and drill a jet, if I think it needs that, I will try that once. And if those two things don't work, I'm not doing it again. I throw the carburetor out, get another one. So they're pressed in, Brett says. Yeah, that makes sense. That's what I figured. You know, it's like you get to a point where you're like, you can't get any leverage to try to get it out. And there's just nothing you can do with it. And why bother? The aftermarket ones, I get the HIPAA ones, and they work pretty good. You know, or like I said, you could get a real one. Let's see, Brett says, I'm thinking of buying one for carbs and clean the saw. Yeah. The saw chains, bushings, bearings, anything that carburetors, electrical, like certain parts, like let's say an alternator, what have you. You can guys use them for electronics too. By the way, you can wash electronics. Not everything, but there's a lot of stuff you can wash, and a lot of guys put them in a bath, and they put them in a sonic bath, and they clean it that way. You got to take everything apart. You got to know what you're doing, like what not to wash. But a lot of stuff can be washed. The biggest problem is you have to dry it. I used to wash my computer motherboard. I put some filters on the front, but I've had, even this computer over the years, the dust is so fine, and the filter keeps out a lot of it. But then the filter also allows the finest of dust to get through. And what I try to do is I have that area outside where I do a lot of de-rusting. And I don't like doing it in here. I'm now setting up the garage to do some of that in case I have to be inside doing it when a rainy or super freezing cold windy day. But I avoid it because the rust is an oxide. And oxide is a semi-metallic substance that is capable of conducting. And what is computers made out of? They're semiconductors that kind of conduct. Well, rust oxide is a semiconductor. And when that dust gets in and it lays on the motherboard, weird things start to happen. Things become unstable. And I've had this happen. And it's just a nightmare. Yeah, even as it is now, once a year I have to take the entire computer apart and I have to wash everything. Recently, I just took the RAM out. I wiped it down. I blew everything out. I took the fans off of the heatsink. It's a big heatsink on my CPU. I washed the heatsink. I washed the fans. I rinsed the area around it and the processor with alcohol. I blew it dry. I put everything through like... they used a heat gun on a few things at distance to try to make sure everything was dry. I had to put it all back together again because the dust is disgusting in here. I got to clean up this area again because it gets like a film coating and it just clogs everything. The cameras, I cleaned them the other day too. You know, but that's modern living, right? And I got to make sure everything is running good. So, all right, so the two things I got to get on to try to find time is that Arian snowblower and the Toro snowblower before the end of the year. And what I was saying about that guy Joey B or whatever, they're talking about possibility of snow at the end of the week down there in Carolina, which means I'll probably get it if it really happens. And February tends to be a very cold month. For a couple of weeks, it makes you want your mommy. Like it could be for like 2-3 weeks. I don't know how some of you guys up in Canada do it. It gets so bad, so frozen, so bitter, so windy, so biting, and then it's like I can't function, you know. And do some pressure washer stuff too. I know, right? I've got this one over here that I showed you like a week or so ago, or 2 weeks ago, that it's got the better pump. Now, that said, I don't think I have it here. Do I have it anywhere here? I don't think it's here. No, it's not going to be here. Yeah, I thought I had it on my desktop. No, I don't know where it is. All right, so I have the pressure washer to end all pressure washers. Okay, I've been holding on to it for a couple of years. It needs a pump, but I have that big cat pump around. I want to sell it. It needs a fuel pump for a pressure washer. So take a guess at what you think it is. All right, if it needs a fuel pump. Like a diesel fuel pump. Like a home heating oil fuel pump. All right, you guys can guess? Right, I don't know what the delay is, right? Like how long it takes for something to come out. Well, it's a steam Jenny, right? That's what we used to call them. I always wanted one. I always wanted a steam Jenny. And I wound up with one. It needs a bunch of work, but it should work. My concern is if I put a pump on it. Yes, Rain says yes, steam. Yep. Yeah, we were up there in the horse's heads there. Where's that? Where's horse heads area? Where's that, Fred? I want snow. I got to test out my massive snowblower on my my Simplicity Sunstar. So the worry I have, it was about 100 and change for the fuel pump. I definitely know it. It's a reverse direction fuel pump. It actually goes backwards. So you got to get the right pump. It's got a Honda engine on it with a pretty decent size. I think it's a general pressure pump. So it's 3,000 PSI. You don't need a lot of pressure. It's steam. And it's got a big oil burner on it with a big tank and 4 wheels. And it's been on the channel like a little bit. I had my tractor moving it around because it's so freaking heavy. Since I was a kid. Oh, Watkins Glen. Wow. So since I was a kid, I wanted one of these things. You know, while other kids wanted things like baseball gloves and stuff, no, I wanted a steam Jenny. Yeah, I know. It's getting late here, too. I'll see you later, Rain. Thanks for stopping in. I might as well can it, too. We're all shot. We have 70 viewers. I want to say thank you to everybody that's been here and hanging out. Don't forget the SuperClean challenge once again. And if you want to know a little bit more about the DTM, again, check out the first handful of minutes I talk about it. And really, thanks to everybody hanging out. And I'm going to be looking for some cool projects and also trying to get somebody else as a guest on here, and we can kind of like interview them and poke at them and stuff. And but I will see you guys next Saturday. So what I'm trying to do is the Saturday night gig between like 7 and 7:30. That seems to be the slot. Keep in mind, a lot of the guys that do this, they already have well-established slots. And I don't want to miss their shows any more than I'm sure you guys do. And I try to catch them whenever possible. And I don't want to step on anybody's toes. And I don't want to do what's already been done and, that kind of thing. So thanks for watching Archer's Garage Live. And I'm going to see if I can do an outro the right way.